Chapter 533. Damn it, you hairy bald donkey. Kill me if you dare. The nine-headed lion roared. Golden light flowed all over its body as it unleashed its cultivation, trying to push Jade Fozzie away. However, Jade Fozzie sat calmly, suppressing the nine-headed lion. You have an affinity with the Buddha. It would be best for you to become my mount. Jade Fozzie was still smiling. He was not angry at all. Affinity my ass. I only have one master, and that is the son of God of the Jun family. Who do you think you are? The nine-headed lion roared non-stop. Previously, when the Emperor Road opened, the nine-headed lion had also stepped onto the Emperor Road with the Jun family, Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, and the others. Then, they went their separate ways to find their own opportunities. Later, when news of the ancient high monk's relics spread, the nine-headed lion wanted to try its luck. After all, the nine-headed lion's ancestors had a deep connection with Buddhism. It might be able to find some opportunities there. Who would have thought that it would run into someone as powerful as Jade Fozzie? Jade Fozzie wanted to make the nine-headed lion his mount, but the nine-headed lion was not happy about it. The two fought. What shocked the nine-headed lion was that Jade Fozzie's strength was too terrifying. As expected of an ancient freak from the Little Western Paradise, the nine-headed lion could not withstand it at all and was immediately suppressed. After that, the nine-headed lion tried to resist, but it could not escape. I am being merciful by not converting you. I hope you know what's good for you. Jade Fozzie was still calm. When my master comes to the Emperor Road, you will die, the nine-headed lion roared. Hearing this, Jade Fozzie narrowed his eyes and said calmly, the son of God of the Jun family that you speak of has already died in the Bronze Immortal Palace. He killed the Little Western Paradise's Bodhisattva and Lady Bodhisattva. His karma is too deep, and now he has died. This is karma. My master is invincible. He is the most powerful person among the younger generation. He will never die, the nine-headed lion retorted. Ha! Jade Fozzie shook his head slightly. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said, Kong Xian. As soon as he said that, a beautiful woman wearing a sapphire blue peacock dress walked in. Her hair was tied up with a peacock hairpin, and there seemed to be a nine-colored divine light flickering behind her. She could vaguely see a nine-colored immortal chi circling her body. This beautiful lady was very powerful. Her cultivation had reached the small perfection of the pre-saint realm. She was also a top genius on the Barren Sky Saint ranking. She was none other than Mahamayuri's daughter, Kong Xian. As soon as she was born, she was subdued by Jade Fozzie and became his follower. Ahat! Kong Xian bowed respectfully. There was respect and admiration in her eyes. She wasn't converted by Jade Buddha Child. Instead, she willingly submitted to him and became his follower. Previously, there was news that a Kuan Peng nest had appeared at the 9th stage of the Emperor Road. You should make a trip there. Who knows, you might be able to obtain some treasures. Perhaps you might even be able to learn the Kuan Peng Great Mystique, Yu Fuzi said calmly. Yes, then you. Kong Xian paused. Outside the 12th stage of the Emperor Road, the Infernal Star is about to open. I need to make some preparations to obtain immortal essence and condense a second strand of immortal chi, Jade Buddha Child said calmly. What? Ahat is about to condense a second strand of immortal chi? Hearing this, Kong Xian's beautiful eyes widened in shock. In the Emperor Road, condensing a strand of immortal chi was enough to make one a small powerhouse. Now, Jade Buddha Child was about to condense a second strand of immortal chi. If he succeeded, then Jade Buddha Child would definitely become the top genius of the Emperor Road. Congratulations, Ahat. Once you condense a second strand of immortal chi, you will be able to reach first place on the Barren Sky Saint ranking. Kong Xian's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. It's still too early to say that. You should go first. Jade Buddha Child waved his hand. Yes, Ahat. Kong Xian will definitely obtain the Kuan Peng Great Mystique for Ahat. Kong Xian vowed and left. He's about to condense a second strand of immortal chi. The nine-headed lion was also feeling depressed. It seemed like it would never have the chance to be free again. At the same time, in the vast starry sky outside the 12th stage of the Emperor Road, A green-robed swordsman was walking in the void. His footwork was very mysterious. Spatial runes flowed under his feet. The long distance seemed to have shortened significantly under his feet. It was as if he was teleporting into the void. Some of the sky prides who were traveling on the ancient starry sky road were shocked when they saw the fleeting figure. That's the void swordsman. It seems like he's also heading to the hell planet of the 12th stage of the Emperor Road. I heard that the void swordsman specializes in the spatial sword Dao. He tried to challenge Yi Guchen, the first place on the Barren Sky Saint ranking. In the end, he was defeated by Yi Guchen with a single strike. He was lucky enough to escape, the Sky Prides were discussing. The Void Swordsman was a top-notch Sky Pride ranked in the top 10 of the Barren Sky Saint ranking. His sword Dao cultivation was earth-shattering. Not only that, but he also had the Void Celestial Body, which allowed him to control a strange spatial mystique. Previously, he used his sword Dao to challenge the reincarnation of the sword demon, Yi Guchen. In the end, he was defeated with a single strike. It was a humiliation that the Void Swordsman could not erase. Just as the Sky Prides were discussing. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind them. "Say that again." The Sky Prides turned around and were shocked to see the Void Swordsman. The space trembled as sword chi gushed out. The Sky Prides were beheaded in an instant. Even their primordial spirits were shattered. The Void Swordsman looked indifferent after casually killing the Sky Prides who talked nonsense. "When I go to the Hell Planet and condense the second strand of immortal chi, I'll challenge Yi Guchen again and wash away my humiliation." The Void Swordsman gritted his teeth. "Besides, if I can find the other half of the spacebook, I'm confident that I can defeat Yi Guchen." The Void Swordsman shook his head slightly. He was the owner of the other half of the spacebook. "By the way, I heard that a Kuanpeng's nest appeared at the 9th stage of the Emperor Road. Although my true body can't go there, but..." The Void Swordsman paused. Behind him, the space trembled. A figure that looked exactly like him but with a weaker aura appeared. It was a spiritual body that he had cultivated for a long time. This spiritual body rushed to the 9th stage of the Emperor Road in a flash. The Void Swordsman's true body rushed to the 12th stage of the Emperor Road. After resting for a few days in the Sword Gate Pass, Jun Xiaoyaro and Mu Yuhan set off together. Mu Yuhan only brought Jun Xiaoyaro with her. There was no need to team up with anyone else. Jun Xiaoyaro alone could take on thousands of soldiers and horses. During this time, Mu Yuhan was also curious. She could not help but ask, "Lord Son of God, how many strands of immortal chi have you condensed?" Jun Xiaoyaro lifted his eyelids slightly and said, "Not many." With his unparalleled talent, 3 strands of immortal chi were indeed not many. However, the Emperor Road had just begun. Jun Xiaoyaro believed that he could condense even more immortal chi in the future. "Is that so?" Mu Yuhan nodded slightly. She knew better than to ask any more questions. It's already very impressive that Lord Son of God could reach the Saint Realm at such a young age. If he can condense immortal chi, it will be difficult for him. Mu Yuhan thought to herself. She felt that Jun Xiaoyaro might be so focused on breaking through to the next stage that he did not have extra energy to condense immortal chi. If she knew that Jun Xiaoyaro had already condensed 3 strands of immortal chi, she would be shocked. Mu Yuhan would probably start to doubt her life. Chapter 534. Jun Xiaoyaro and Mu Yuhan started their journey from the Sword Gate Pass, the 6th stage of the Emperor Road, and continued on the ancient path of stars. Along the way, Mu Yuhan finally got to see just how ferocious Jun Xiaoyaro really was. Along the way, there were no threats, space bandits, other sky prides, and all sorts of dangerous places. Jun Xiaoyaro pushed forward with one hand. No obstacles could stop him from moving forward. Even when they encountered some powerful sky prides who wanted to fight, Jun Xiaoyaro killed them all with one move. He never used a second move. Mu Yuhan admired him. She then thought of Yi Guchen, the reincarnation of the sword demon who was ranked first on the Barren Sky Saint leaderboard. She heard that he was also the same. He only used one sword move against his enemies. One of them only used one sword move, while the other only used one move. If the two of them clashed, how intense would the battle be? Who would win in the end? Mu Yuhan was suddenly curious. With Jun Xiaoyaro around, they had no obstacles at all. Mu Yuhan even took out a starry sky flying ship. It could cross the void at an extremely fast speed. Even so, it took them almost half a year to finally reach the 9th stage of the Emperor Road. This stage was called the Jade Gate Pass. However, Jun Xiaoyaro and Mu Yuhan did not plan to enter the Jade Gate Pass. Instead, they headed straight for the boundless starry sky outside the Jade Gate Pass. That was because the Kuan Peng nest was located in a sea of stars. At the same time, outside the Jade Gate Pass, in the void millions of miles away, a vast Milky Way sea was laid out in the middle. As far as the eye could see, it was even vaster than some of the vast oceans in the immortal region. One star after another floated up and down, like reefs in the sea. A person standing in front of this sea of stars was no bigger than a grain of sand. Originally, this starry sea was a dangerous place. If one was accidentally sucked into it, not only would they lose their way, but they could also be sucked into various vortexes, broken formations, and spatial cracks, and die. However, during this period of time, this sea of stars that was rarely visited by humans had become extremely lively. Every moment, more and more geniuses would gather. At a rough glance, there were at least 1,000 sky prides gathered outside the Milky Way. Those who could make it to the 9th stage of the Emperor Road were all dragons and phoenixes among men. All of them were capable. At this moment, all of the sky prides from the Emperor Road were looking at the depths of the Milky Way Sea with a burning passion. One could vaguely see a black layer that was suffused with an ancient and desolate aura located in the deepest part of the Sea of Stars. The black layer was extremely magnificent, like an ancient demonic mountain, emitting a desolate aura. It was the Kuanpeng nest. However, at this moment, the Kuanpeng nest was closed. One could faintly see cracks spreading on the surface of the Kuanpeng nest. In the Sea of Stars, meteorites would occasionally move and crash into the surface of the Kuanpeng nest, causing the crack to widen. It seems that the rock nest will open soon. Many geniuses were excited. This was a rare opportunity. What do you think will be inside? Ancient sacred weapons, supreme weapons, immortal sacred pills, or Kuanpeng true blood? Some of the sky prides were excited. I only hope to obtain the Kuanpeng's grand superpower. This way, I will be more confident of reaching the end of the Emperor Road and embarking on the ancient ultimate road. Some of the sky prides were discussing heatedly. Of course, many of them were wary. The atmosphere was relatively calm now. When the Kuanpeng nest opened, it would be a bloody expedition. After all, there were only so many opportunities. It was impossible for everyone to get them. At this moment, many of the sky prides heard the sound of waves. Some of them looked in the direction of the sound and saw a huge wave sweeping over from the distant starry sky. This was unbelievable. They were in the universe, but there were waves sweeping over. Could it be that he is here? Some of the sky prides immediately thought of the famous sky prides on the Huangtian Saint ranking. The third prince of the Sea God. This was a small powerhouse from the Sea God Ancient Star Zone. Although he was a sky pride from the Ancient Star Zone, his talent was extremely demonic. He was no weaker than the descendants of the Huangtian immortal forces. It was rumored that he had an extremely ancient bloodline of the Sea God. He was on the saint ranking and no one dared to offend him. Two figures appeared on the huge wave. They were two young men with extraordinary auras. One of them had fish scales covering his skin. The other had tentacle-like Dharma power behind him. It's not the third prince of the Sea God. It's his two followers, Lord Churning River and Lord Now High, said one of the sky prides. The young man with fish scales on his skin was Lord Churning River. He looked around coldly and said, "The Kuanpeng's grand superpower is extremely important to the Crown Prince. We must get it." Of course. If the third prince obtains the Kuanpeng's grand superpower, he will be like a tiger that has grown wings. He might even be able to cultivate a second strand of deity chi, said Lord Now High. The third prince of the Sea God was not the only one attracted by the Kuanpeng nest. In another direction, there was the sound of wind breaking. Golden light shone brightly as a golden-winged roc flew across the sky. The golden-winged rock flashed and turned into human form. He was handsome and had long golden hair. The gaze in his eyes was as sharp as a heavenly blade. If Jun Xiaoyaro was here, he would definitely recognize that it was an old acquaintance, golden-winged rock. It's golden-winged rock. He's here too. Many sky prides were wary. Golden-winged rock was one of the more tragic sky prides. He had been defeated by Jun Xiaoyaro one after another. When golden-winged rock saw Jun Xiaoyaro at the immortal ancient Dao Lake, he did not even have the will to fight and ran away immediately. However, after hearing that Jun Xiaoyaro had died in the Bronze Divine Palace, golden-winged rock felt relieved. He felt that the haze had dissipated. His Dao heart had recovered and he was in a very good state. He felt that his invincible self had returned. The darkness has passed. I have to focus on the future. When I obtain the Kunpeng's superpower, I will definitely be able to reach the top 10 of the Barren Sky Saint ranking. Golden-winged rock's eyes shone with confidence. Jun Xiaoyao's era had passed. Only the living sky prides had the right to talk about the future. Golden-winged rock's original form is a golden-winged rock. If he can obtain the Kunpeng's superpower, he will definitely be like a tiger that has grown wings. Some of the sky pride's eyes glinted. They did not want another powerful sky pride to appear on the Emperor Road. The resources in this Kunpeng nest belonged to Master Arhat. At that moment, a female voice was heard. In the distant starry sky, a 9-colored divine light flashed. A beautiful woman in a sapphire blue peacock dress flew across the void. Divine light radiated from her body as she emitted a powerful aura. It's Kong Xian, Jade Arhat's follower. Many of the sky prides on the Emperor Road were wary. Jade Arhat was one of the people on the Emperor Road that no one dared to offend. Golden-winged rock's eyes glinted when he saw Kong Xian's arrival. However, golden-winged rock was displeased when he heard what she said. He frowned slightly and said, Kong Xian, what kind of magic potion did Jade Arhat feed you? Why are you so loyal to him? There was a hint of jealousy in his tone. The golden-winged rock tribe and Mahamayuri's tribe had been on good terms for generations. Golden-winged rock knew Kong Xian as well. He even had a good impression of Kong Xian. Unfortunately, Kong Xian was a fanatical follower of Jade Arhat. This made golden-winged rock extremely hostile towards Jade Arhat. Master Arhat's strength is not something you can understand. Kong Xian looked at golden-winged rock with a hint of disdain in her beautiful eyes. You. Golden-winged rock frowned. Once I obtain the Kunpeng's superpower and raise my cultivation base, I will definitely go and meet that Jade Arhat. Golden-winged rock snorted. Master Arhat is invincible. You won't stand a chance. Kong Xian shook her head. Chapter 535. Kong Xian idolized Jade Fozi almost blindly. In her eyes, Jade Fozi was one of the top sky prides on the Emperor Road. He was destined to step onto the ultimate ancient road. Golden-winged rock was not pleased to see Kong Xian's idolization. However, he had to admit that Jade Fozi was powerful. Golden-winged rock was not even qualified to fight Jade Fozi if he could not obtain the Kunpeng mystique or the Kunpeng blood essence. It was because of this that the golden-winged little rock king's eyes flashed with determination. He could not miss the opportunity of obtaining the Kunpeng nest. While they were waiting, another figure tore through the void and arrived. It was a green-robed swordsman with a long sword on his back. He looked indifferent as he tore through the void and arrived. When he appeared, the surrounding space vibrated and streaks of sword chi gathered in the void. The surrounding sky prides were unable to dodge in time and were directly smashed into clouds of blood mist. It's the sword son of the void. He's here too. The green-robed swordsman was the sword son of the void. Or rather, the sword son of the void's spiritual body. However, even if it was just a spiritual body, it was undefeatable to the sky prides present. After all, he was ranked in the top 10 on the Barren Sky Saint ranking. Sword son of the void, golden-winged rock, Kong Xian, and the others were also shocked to see the sword son of the void. However, they were relieved when they sensed the sword son of the void's cultivation level. It was obvious that it was just a spiritual body. However, they did not let down their guard. The sword son of the void came from the heavenly void ancient starfield. Surprisingly, he did not have any immortal faction or supreme orthodoxy behind him. He only had one master. However, his master was the most powerful person in the heavenly void ancient starfield. He was called the Sword Master of the Void. Not only was the Sword Master of the Void the most powerful person in the heavenly void ancient starfield, but he was also famous in many ancient starfields. That was why, even though the Sword Son of the Void did not have any faction behind him, the descendants of ordinary immortal factions did not dare to underestimate him. I must obtain this Kuanping nest. The Sword Son of the Void placed his hands behind his back. Although it was just a spiritual body, he still had a peerless aura. It seems that the opportunity of obtaining the Kuanping nest will not be easy. Golden-winged rock felt pressured. Whoosh! At this moment, a starry sky-flying ship suddenly tore through the sky, attracting the attention of many people. Who's that? Some skyprides of the void ancient starfield muttered. A beautiful woman dressed in a moon-white muslin dress walked out from within. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind, and her appearance was flawless. She carried a coldness like moonlight. It was Mu Yuhan. It's the moon fairy to be. Many skyprides' eyes lit up when they saw Mu Yuhan. She was a famous beauty on Emperor Road. Her strength was extraordinary, and her looks were outstanding. And many skyprides. And of the. However, there was one bad thing about Mu Yuhan, which was that she was too cold. Most men would have a hard time getting close to her. Tutus she. Oh, it's the moon fairy. The third prince has invited you to walk the Emperor Road with him many times, but you did not respond. Do you have an answer now? The two followers of the sea god's third prince, Lord Churning River and Lord Nauhai, asked when they saw Mu Yuhan. Mu Yuhan's eyes flashed with annoyance when she heard this. The sea god's third prince had taken a liking to her and wanted to invite her to walk the Emperor Road. His words were nice. But to put it bluntly, he just wanted her body. He wanted to use her pure yin body to cultivate and speed up his cultivation. Mu Yuhan naturally did not agree, so she delayed it. Now that she had met Jun Xiaoyaro, it was even more impossible for Mu Yuhan to have anything to do with the sea god's third prince. Compared to Jun Xiaoyaro, the sea god's third prince who was on the saint leaderboard was nothing. Tell the third prince to stop dreaming. Mu Yuhan's voice was cold as she said indifferently. All right. I just hope you won't regret it and beg the third prince to take you in. Lord Churning River sneered. Mu Yuhan was amused. She would regret it. It would be insane of him to go to the third crown prince instead of Jun Xiaoyao, who was a big shot. Hihi, please don't mind her. Mu Yuhan is arrogant and self-righteous. She doesn't like anyone. A sarcastic female voice was heard. Mu Yuhan frowned. Not far away, two figures flew over. The one who spoke was a beautiful woman in a jade-green dress. Hey, it's the saintess of the Black Yuan Ancient Star System's Jade Sky Sect, Su Biyu, one of the Skyprides said. She was also a proud woman with a good reputation for her beauty. When the woman called Su Biyu saw Mu Yuhan, her eyes flashed with jealousy and hatred. The Black Yuan Ancient Star System and Guanghan Ancient Star System were neighbors. As the saintess of the Jade Sky Sect, she was often compared to Mu Yuhan. But in front of Mu Yuhan, she was just a leaf. As time passed, Su Biyu became jealous of Mu Yuhan and even wanted to get rid of her. Mu Yuhan's expression was calm when she saw Su Biyu. However, Mu Yuhan's eyes narrowed when she saw the person beside her. It was a silent and majestic being. His body shone with a metallic luster, and he didn't have any aura of life. He looked like a stone statue. However, this living being made many heaven's favorites stare at him and gasp in shock. Could that be the hept metal rock spirit? It's true. Rumor has it that he's a divine metal rock spirit and is very powerful. Many skyprides were wary when they saw the hept metal rock spirit. A divine metal that had a divine metal rock spirit was extremely talented and had a bright future. A true greater success divine metal rock spirit was comparable to emperors and ancient emperors. You actually found an ally of the hept metal rock spirit. Mu Yuhan was surprised. So Mu Yuhan, you have to be careful. But why don't I see your ally? Su Biu sneered. In her opinion, she would definitely benefit from the Kuan Peng nest since she had the heptametal rock spirit on her side. She might even be able to get rid of Mu Yuhan, who was an eyesore. The heptametal rock spirit turned to look at the galactic flying ship and snorted. Coward. As soon as he said that, a sharp beam of heptametal shot out toward Mu Yuhan and the galactic flying ship. Mu Yuhan's expression changed. However, the heptametal rock spirit disappeared as soon as it got within 10 feet of the galactic flying ship. The heptametal rock spirit's eyes lit up. Many sky prides around were also surprised. Does Fairy Yuhan also have a powerful ally? Some sky prides were curious. At that moment, a calm voice came from the galactic flying ship. The heptametal rock spirit. Not bad. I can refine it into my life artifact. Everyone fell silent when they heard that voice. What did they just hear? Someone actually dared to use the heptametal rock spirit as a refining material. Chapter 536. The Gungjin rock spirit was a powerful prodigy on the barren sky saint ranking. Since it was made of divine metal, its body was invulnerable and had a great advantage. Even a prodigy who had condensed a strand of divine chi would find it difficult to deal with the Gungjin rock spirit. But now, the calm voice in the starship wanted to use the Gungjin rock spirit as a material for crafting weapons. This was a blatant show of contempt. Although the Gungjin rock spirit was an extremely rare metal, who would dare to use it as a material for crafting weapons? All the prodigies present found this unbelievable. Some of them even laughed out loud, thinking that this was ridiculous. Kong Xian shook her head, her eyes filled with mockery. She mumbled, if the Arhat said this, it might be possible. This person is too naive. Although Kong Xian was a prodigy of the barren sky mystic realm, she only appeared after Jun Xiaoyaro disappeared from the Bronze Divine Palace. Therefore, she had never seen Jun Xiaoyaro before and had never heard his voice. At most, she only knew his name. Su Biu couldn't help but laugh. Haha, Mu Yuhan, your ally is too ignorant. How could he say something so ridiculous? You are the ignorant ones. Mu Yuhan's eyes were cold. If they knew who was sitting in the starry sky flying ship, would they still be able to laugh? The only one who didn't laugh was the golden-winged rock. When he heard the calm voice, the golden-winged rock's entire body froze and his feathers stood on end. This voice had sounded in countless nightmares. To him, it was like a nightmare. No, I must have heard wrong. It can't be that person. The golden-winged rock's back was covered in cold sweat as he comforted himself. That person is already in the past. It can't be him. Maybe it's just the voice. The golden-winged rock took a deep breath and calmed himself down. This is just my inner demon causing trouble. I can't let it grow again. The golden-winged rock calmed himself down. He felt that it was probably the remnants of his inner demons that caused him to mishear and think that it was that person's voice. When the Gungjin stone spirit heard this, a murderous glint flashed in its eyes. His original body was a rare divine metal, and what he hated the most was being used as a refining material by others. You're courting death. The Gungjin rock spirit raised its hand, and the sharp Gungjin chi transformed into a 300-meter-long sword that was about to slash out. But it was also at this moment that in the depths of the vast sea of stars, the pitch-black Kuan Peng nest suddenly emitted an earth-shaking roar. Huge cracks began to spread on its surface. Dazzling golden light leaked out along with many complicated Tao inscriptions. It was as if a supreme divine land was about to open. The Kuan Peng nest is about to open. Charge. If there really is a Kuan Peng divine ability, I must get it. The thousands of Emperor Road sky prides on the scene were envious. The Kuan Peng nest was definitely one of the rare great opportunities on the Emperor Road. If they could get their hands on the Kuan Peng true blood and the Kuan Peng divine ability, they would undoubtedly be qualified to make it to the desolate sky saint ranking. None of the sky prides on the scene could remain calm. Mph, I'll let you live a little longer. The Gungjin rock spirit retracted its hand. Compared to killing this annoying fellow, the Kuan Peng nest was more important. Almost all the sky prides on the scene rushed into the Sea of Stars at the same time. There were many dangers in the Sea of Stars. There were all kinds of strange spatial cracks and void vortexes that swallowed sky prides one after another, and they did not even have time to scream. But this did not stop the sky prides from entering the Kuanping nest. Duke Fanjiang, Duke Chaohai, Golden-Winged Roc, Kong Xian, the Void Sword Master, the Gungjin Rock Spirit, Su Biyu, and other sky prides also rushed into the Sea of Stars. In just a few breaths' time, only Mu Yuhan and Jun Xiaoyaro had not entered the Sea of Stars. Lord Son of God, shouldn't we hurry over? Mu Yuhan asked. She was not worried with Jun Xiaoyaro around. But when she saw the other sky prides rushing towards the Kuanping nest, she could not help but feel anxious. Don't be anxious. Do you think the treasures in the Kuanping nest will be so easy to obtain? Jun Xiaoyaro walked out of the spaceship slowly. His eyes were deep like the starry sky as he looked at the Kuanping nest. Jun Xiaoyaro could sense that there seemed to be some interesting creatures in the Kuanping nest. It would not be easy for those sky prides to obtain the treasures in the Kuanping nest. With Lord Son of God around, I'm not worried. Mu Yuhan smiled. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao's confident look, she was not worried at all. Let's go. Jun Xiaoyaro walked leisurely and entered the Sea of Stars with Mu Yuhan. About half an hour passed. The sky prides who entered the Sea of Stars first gradually approached the Kuanping nest. Looking around, the cracked Kuanping nest was filled with golden light. It carried an ancient, desolate, and sacred aura, which made the eyes of all the sky prides brighten. The Void Swordsman's body shook, and mysterious space runes flowed under his feet. His body flashed and entered the Kuanping nest. River-churning Marquis and Marquis Chaohai also had rune waves under their feet, which carried them in. Kong Xian, Golden-Winged Roc, Gungjin Rock Spirit, Su Biyu, and other sky prides did not want to fall behind and squeezed in. The other sky prides swarmed in as well. 15 minutes later, Jun Xiaoyaro and Mu Yuhan arrived in front of the Kuanping nest. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro stopped in his tracks. What's wrong, Lord Son of God? Mu Yuhan was confused. Jun Xiaoyaro did not say a word. His body flashed around the Kuanping nest. Vaguely, strands of formation runes appeared in the void, carrying with them a sealing force. Mu Yuhan was confused at first, but after feeling the sealing power, her beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. No way. No way. The son of God of the Jun family can't be so cruel, can he? Jun Xiaoyaro returned to where he was moments later with a casual smirk on his face. Let's go in. Jun Xiaoyaro flashed in. Looking at Jun Xiaoyao's back, who stood with his hands behind his back and strolled leisurely, Mu Yuhan could not help but pray for the sky prides who entered the Kuanping nest. Jun Xiaoyaro, the fisherman, wanted to catch all the fish. Inside the Kuanping nest, the sky prides felt a dense spiritual qi as soon as they entered. Even if there were no treasures inside, just cultivating in the Kuanping nest alone would benefit them greatly. Hiss, this is a sage-level herb. There are also many sage-level herbs. That's a pool of spiritual liquid. The sky prides who entered the Kuanping nest were all wide-eyed when they saw the spiritual herbs, spiritual liquid, and spiritual liquid everywhere. Then, they began to search frantically. On the other hand, Golden-Winged Roc, the Void Sword Master, and the others did not show much emotion when they saw these things. Although the sage-level spiritual liquid was precious, it was nothing in their eyes. Where are the treasures of the Kuanping nest? Golden-Winged Roc pondered. Suddenly, a sky pride pushed open an ancient stone door in front of them. Then, a vast sound was heard, attracting the attention of all the sky prides. That is. Chapter 537. Many sky prides turned to look. Behind the stone door was a vast and boundless ocean. It was not the starry ocean outside the Kuanping's nest, but a real ocean. Could this be a mini-world? Only the primordial Kuanping could do something like this, forming a mini-world and creating a cave. This was a technique that only a top-notch expert could do. In the eyes of these Emperor Road sky prides, this was an unimaginable technique. Charred. None of the sky prides hesitated. Compared to the opportunities before them, the real opportunity of the Kuanping should be hidden in that mini-world. All the sky prides entered it. Not long after, the sky prides saw a black island in the depths of the mini-world. On the island, there was a golden lair that was spewing out rays of light. That's the real Kuan Peng's nest. It might contain the Kuan Peng's true blood and the supreme Kuan Peng's superpower. Seeing the golden lair, all the Sky Prides could not remain calm and swarmed over. On the other hand, the Void Swordmaster, Kong Xian, Golden Winged Rock, Gungjin Rock Spirit, and the others had a hint of doubt in their eyes. At this time, some of the Sky Prides had already reached the Black Island. However, not long after, something strange happened. Some of the Sky Prides had mysteriously disappeared. What's going on? There's something strange about this island. These Sky Prides had already sensed that something was wrong before they even got close to the golden lair. In the distance, the Void Swordmaster's eyes flashed when he saw this. What a bunch of tricks! The Void Swordmaster raised his hand, and the long sword on his back soared into the sky. He slashed out a powerful spatial sword ray and landed on the Black Island. Boom! Accompanied by a violent tremor, the island actually began to tremble. At the same time, a dull roar was heard. What's going on? Is this island a spirit? No, this is not an island. Some of the Sky Prides realized what was going on. The space around the Black Island was distorted. Finally, what appeared before everyone's eyes was a clam beast the size of a small island. That's the primordial mutated beast, Clam. Marquis River Churning and Marquis Nauhai were shocked. They came from the Sea King ancient starfield, which was almost entirely covered by the sea. Therefore, they had a deep understanding of all kinds of sea-type ferocious beasts and could recognize them at a glance. The clam in front of him was, without a doubt, the legendary Kai. There was an idiom called a mirage, which was used to describe this type of demonic beast. The sea serpent would spit out clouds and mist to create illusions to confuse cultivators. Although the Hui in front of him was not a pure-blooded primordial Hui, it still possessed part of the Hui's bloodline. More importantly, all the Sky Prides could sense that the Kai's aura had reached the great perfection stage of the Sage stage. This was no longer something that a single genius could deal with. The Kai suddenly opened its closed carapace. Instantly, vortexes appeared one after another. A terrifying suction force erupted, sucking in some of the Sky Prides. The small number of Sky Prides who had disappeared previously were secretly swept into the vortex. Run! This venomous Hu is invincible. Most of the Sky Prides present were in the Tao God realm. Only a few Sky Prides were sage to be. They did not even have a true sage. How could they fight against this Kai at the great perfection stage of the Sage stage? In the sky, the Void Swordsman once again slashed out with his sword. The powerful fluctuations were shocking. Floating sword technique. The Void Swordsman slashed down with his sword. The space in front of him was split in half. However, when the sword chi landed on the Kai's carapace, it only created some sparks. Damn it! The Void Swordsman's eyes darkened. If my original body was here, I would not be afraid of this evil beast. The Void Swordsman was unwilling to give up. He had only sent a spiritual body. Although it had some combat power, it could not be compared to his original body. Kong Xian also attacked. 9-colored divine light shot out from her jade-like hand, forming 9 light pillars that shot out. The golden-winged little rock king also spread his wings. His feathers fell off like golden flying swords, making clanging sounds. His 108,000 sword feathers slashed down at the same time, creating intense sparks as they collided. Marquis Jiang Fan, Marquis Nauhai, Gungjin Shiling, Su Biyu, and the others also attacked. However, they could not hurt the Kai at all. On the contrary, the Emperor Road's Sky Prides began to suffer more casualties. 200 to 300 Sky Prides had already been swallowed by the Kai. If this goes on, we will all die before we find the real Kuanping nest, Su Biyu said unwillingly. It was not easy for her to rope in the Gungjin Shiling to come and explore the Kuanping nest together. She would not be satisfied if she failed and retreated just like that. We can only attack together now. Let's kill this Kai first, then fight for it with our own abilities. Kong Xian shouted. That's right. Let's work together and kill this evil beast first. There are so many of us. Why should we be afraid of it? The other Emperor Road Sky Prides shouted. Then, all the Sky Prides joined forces. Various techniques were combined and turned into a rolling torrent that blasted toward the Kai. The Kai's carapace was colorful and glowing with divine light. The aura of a sage at great perfection caused many sky prides to tremble. Boom! Stormy waves rose up in this small world, and the waves were 10,000 jong high. After a series of attacks, the Kai remained unscathed. There was not even a scratch on its carapace. Everyone was stunned. The golden-winged roc, Kong Xian, the void sword master, the Gungjin Shiling, and the others looked even worse. They were all famous sky prides in the Emperor Road. However, they could not even defeat a Kai together. If news of this were to spread, their reputation would be ruined. Just when everyone was feeling helpless. How dare this evil beast stand in the way of the Son of God? Following this indifferent voice, Yi Zichen said. In the distant sky, a vast sword chi swept across the sky and slashed toward them. Along the way, the horrifying scene of immortals falling appeared. It was hair-raising. This sword chi. Could it be that Yi Guchen is here? The void sword master could not help but shout as he felt the peerless sword chi. His pupils suddenly shrank. In his opinion, on the Emperor Road, other than himself, only the reincarnated sword demon, Yi Guchen, could use such a sword technique. What? Yi Guchen is here? That's right. Only Yi Guchen can use such a sword technique. While the crowd was still in shock, the sword ray finally landed on the ground. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the Kai that they could not defeat even when they joined forces. Under this sword, its carapace shattered and was directly split into two. One should know that this was a Kai at the Sage Great Perfection realm. Even a Sage Sky Pride could not kill it in one move. How is this possible? How can Yi Guchen be so strong? The Void Sword Master could not help but feel shocked when he saw the Kai that was killed in one move. He had fought Yi Guchen before. Although Yi Guchen was very strong, he could not be so strong that he could kill a sage at the Sage Great Perfection realm in one move. Just as everyone's hearts were in a state of shock. In the distance, a leisurely figure finally stepped on the air and came over. When they saw the peerless figure in white, all the Sky Pride's faces froze. They were stunned. Chapter 538. In their minds, the person who drew the sword should be Yi Guchen, who was ranked first on the Baron Sky Saint ranking. Although not everyone had seen Yi Guchen's appearance before, they had heard of him. He wore a black robe and carried the blood-stained Imperial Slayer sword on his back. His temperament was cold and arrogant, like a lone wolf. However, the white-robed figure who walked in the air with his hands behind his back did not match the rumored Yi Guchen at all. Zhun Xiaoyao's white robe fluttered in the wind. His temperament was like an immortal, and there was a hint of nonchalance on his handsome face. In his opinion, it was extremely normal for him to kill a Hui at the Sage Stage Paramount stage so casually. He did not feel proud at all. He's so handsome. Some female sky prides saw Zhun Xiaoyao and exclaimed subconsciously. Their beautiful eyes were filled with shock and amazement. They were shocked because of Zhun Xiaoyao's cultivation. They were amazed because of his appearance and his carefree temperament. Even if all the sky prides from Emperor Road joined forces, they could not defeat the Hui. However, this white-robed man killed it with a single move. This made many people's eyes tremble. There was only one person present who seemed to have stopped breathing and felt like his scalp was about to explode. Zhun Xiaoyao. Zhun Xiaoyao, golden-winged roc's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His teeth were chattering. Due to the extreme shock, his mind went blank for a moment. Was this not the figure that often appeared in his inner demons? How is this possible? You entered such a dangerous place. How are you still alive? Golden-winged roc could not believe it. His exclamation was heard by the other sky prides. At first, they were stunned. Then, they suddenly felt that this name sounded familiar. Zhun Xiaoyao. Could it be the son of God of the Zhun family? Kong Xian's beautiful eyes were also shocked. She had never seen Zhun Xiaoyao before. However, almost all living beings in the Huangtian mystic realm had heard of Zhun Xiaoyao's name. Not only the Huangtian mystic realm, but the sky prides from other ancient star domains also came to their senses. He is Zhun Xiaoyao. Marquis Jiang Churning and Marquis Naohai's eyes narrowed. Zhang Xiaoyao's appearance was not good news for them, because it might overshadow the glory of the third prince of the sea. As for Su Biyu, she was also shocked. What made her even more upset was the fact that Mu Yuhan, whom she viewed as a thorn in her side, walked to Zhang Xiaoyao's side. There was no doubt that Zhang Xiaoyao was the one who said that he wanted to use the Gongjin spirit stone as a crafting material. A cold glint flashed across the seventh metal stone spirit's eyes. At the same time, there was fear. After all, Zhang Xiaoyao was able to kill who was at the level of a saint at great perfection, with a single strike of his sword. However, the Gung metal rock spirit was not too afraid. Its body was made of divine metal, which made it invulnerable to swords and spears. It would not be easy for Zhang Xiaoyao to deal with him. Looking, Zhang's was Zhang. He was used to being the center of attention wherever he went. Mu Yuhan felt even more proud of herself. Damn it, son of a B***tch. Golden-winged Rock's body trembled. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He even cursed. He instinctively flapped his wings and wanted to escape. When he met Zhang Xiaoyao at the immortal ancient Dao Lake, he also ran away. He didn't even have the will to fight. But now, he finally arrived at the Kuanpeng nest. He felt like he was about to fly. And then he met this jinx again. I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have messed with Zhang Xiaoyao. The golden-winged little rock king looked terrible, and he was about to cry. It's golden-winged rock. Long time no see. How are you? Zhang Xiaoyao glanced around and saw golden-winged rock, an old acquaintance. To be honest, Zhang Xiaoyao missed seeing an old acquaintance from the Huangtian mystic realm on the Long Emperor's Road. So it's the son of God. Golden-winged rock squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. Golden-winged rock was too difficult. You're the rumored number 1 of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm, the son of God of the Zhang family. I didn't expect you to be a swordsman who specializes in swordsmanship. The Void Swordsman narrowed his eyes. For some reason, he always felt that there was something about Zhang Xiaoyao that attracted him. It was like a power of the same origin. Zhang Xiaoyao also noticed the Void Swordsman. After blocking it, a dark light flashed in his eyes. This feeling, could it be the Spacebook? Zhang Xiaoyao's primordial spirit perception was much stronger than that of the Void Swordsman. So he also keenly felt that the Spacebook was fluctuating on the Void Swordsman. Here comes the leak. Zhang Xiaoyao laughed from the bottom of his heart. He said, the son of God is not a swordsman. It's just a pastime. How dare you insult swordsmanship? Hearing Zhang Xiaoyao's casual words, the Void Swordsman's eyes sharpened. To be able to display such a terrifying sword move, Zhang Xiaoyao actually said that swordsmanship was a pastime. What was this if not an insult? You're in a hurry? Zhang Xiaoyao raised his eyes indifferently. You insult swordsmanship. You don't deserve to use swordsmanship. The Void Swordsman said coldly. Ha! Zhang Xiaoyao laughed. The son of God just has to use another sword. As soon as Zhang Xiaoyao's voice fell, a divine chain of order rushed out from between his eyebrows and immediately turned into a small golden sword with a monstrous aura. It was the primitive Emperor sword. Feeling the terrifying power of the primitive Emperor sword, the Void Swordsman's expression finally changed. Sword technique of the Void. He swung his sword, and the Void exploded. Sword chi swept out together with a spatial storm. However, in front of the primitive Emperor sword, everything was destroyed. The sword chi exploded, and the primitive Emperor sword went straight for the Void Swordsman, piercing through his forehead. Zhang Xiaoyao, just you wait. If you have the guts, come to the 12th stage of the Emperor Road. I won't let you go. The Void Swordsman's spiritual body shouted angrily and exploded into specks of light. The Void Swordsman's spiritual body was destroyed. Seeing this scene, many of the Emperor Road Skyprides felt a chill run down their spines. First, he killed the Hu with a single sword move. Now, he killed the Void Swordsman. Although the Void Swordsman was only a spiritual body, he was still stronger than many of the quasi-saint Skyprides. No wonder he's the number 1 of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm. The rumors are true. Maybe it won't be long before we see the name of the Jun family's Son of God on the Huangtian Saint ranking. In the past, the Son of God of the Jun family was Yi Guchen, Lord Grim, and the others. Now we know that the Jun family's Son of God is the real Son of God. Some of the female sky prides were so excited that their eyes sparkled. On the other hand, Su Biyu, Kong Xian, and the others did not look happy. Yu Fuzi had forcibly suppressed Jun Xiaoyao's mount, the nine-headed lion. There was bound to be friction in the future. On the other hand, Su Biyu had a grudge against Mu Yuhan. The Gungjin rock spirit had almost attacked Jun Xiaoyaro before. Su Biyu felt a chill run down her spine when she thought of this. Jun Xiaoyaro did not care about the Gungjin rock spirit and the others. They could be killed at any time. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand again. Using his fingers as a sword, he performed the sword chant of the immortal slayer and slashed down. In an instant, the entire ocean seemed to have been split in half by this sword. At the bottom of the sea, there was a dazzling golden lair within it. Chapter 539. That's the real Kuan Peng nest. Seeing the golden nest at the bottom of the sea, all the Emperor Road Sky Pride's eyes lit up. There was no doubt that the real Kuan Peng nest was at the bottom of the sea. The lair on the island was nothing more than an illusion created by Kai Jun Xiaoyaro split the ocean current with his sword. Mu Yuhan followed closely behind him. Duke Fanjiang, Duke Chaohai, Kong Xian, Metal Rock Spirit, Su Biyu, and the others followed suit. As for Golden Winged Rock, there was a hint of struggle in his eyes. When he saw Jun Xiaoyaro appear, he instinctively wanted to run away. However, his true form was the Golden Winged Rock. The Kuan Peng nest's opportunity was too compatible with him. Golden Winged Rock was reluctant to leave. Golden Winged Rock gritted his teeth and followed suit. The rest of the Emperor Road Sky Prides followed suit. At the bottom of the sea, the golden Kuan Peng nest emitted a dazzling glow. Many mysterious daoist patterns flowed around it. The golden glow was dazzling, and the air was steaming. Jun Xiaoyaro pointed his finger. The power of thunder gathered and turned into the Thunder Emperor's finger. He pointed it at the entrance of the Kuan Peng nest. In an instant, the entrance of the Kuan Peng nest was blasted apart with a loud boom. It's the Thunder Emperor's divine power. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao's technique, many of the Emperor Road Sky Prides were shocked. Jun Xiaoyaro already had the Thunder Emperor's divine power. If he could obtain the Kuan Peng's divine power this time, his strength would definitely soar once again. The strong would always be strong. This was the truth. Golden Winged Rock's eyes were filled with despair. In a cruel place like the Emperor Road, the strong would only get stronger. As for the weak, sorry, they did not even have the right to become weak. They would lose their lives. After Jun Xiaoyaro broke open the Kuan Peng nest, he barged into it in an extremely barbaric manner. In an instant, a terrifying aura appeared around him. Strands of murderous formation patterns appeared and swept toward Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro stretched out his palm and his mana surged. Like a divine millstone of destruction, it obliterated all the runes. Mu Yuhan was by his side and didn't even need to do anything. So strong. Behind him, the Emperor Road Sky Prides were shocked to see Jun Xiaoyaro carving out a path for himself. The other heavenly talents all had to be extremely careful when they entered the relic. How could there be someone like Jun Xiaoyao, who directly pushed his way through with brute force? Many geniuses followed behind Jun Xiaoyaro with gleaming eyes. Su Biyu, Gungjin Shiling, Marquis Fanjiang, Marquis Naohai, and the others also shamelessly followed behind. You want to take advantage of me? When Jun Xiaoyaro saw this, his eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. He reached out and grabbed Mu Yuahan's slender waist. Lord Son of God! Mu Yuahan's heart raced as her face flushed red. Could it be that Jun Xiaoyaro was interested now? But this was in front of so many people. Could it be that Jun Xiaoyaro was interested in this? Lord Son of God, if you want Yuhan to play the flute, can you wait until we get back? Mu Yuhan said with her face flushed red. Jun Xiaoyaro was speechless. Mu Yuhan looked cold on the outside, but she was actually flirtatious on the inside. With a flash of his feet, he grabbed Mu Yuahan's waist and appeared 100 miles away in the blink of an eye as if he had teleported. This was also one of the spacebook's abilities. What? Seeing Jun Xiaoyaro dashing away, the Emperor Road Sky Prides who wanted to take advantage of him were dumbfounded. Not long after, screams could be heard. Some of the Sky Prides were cut in half by the killing formation. "Chen-ph, I can enter without you." Kong Xian's face darkened. She released a 9-colored divine light from her hand and fought against the killing formation. The other Sky Prides were also fighting against the various incomplete killing formations. For a while, there were many casualties. On the other hand, Jun Xiaoyaro finally let go of Mu Yuhan's waist after they had traveled hundreds of miles. Mu Yuhan came back to her senses. It turned out that Jun Xiaoyaro did not want the Sky Prides to follow behind and take advantage of him. Thinking of this, Mu Yuhan was still a little disappointed. However, her disappointment quickly dissipated. That was because they had already passed through the killing formation. In front of them were all kinds of spiritual herbs and treasures. It was a dazzling array that blinded their eyes. Even though Mu Yuhan was the Moon Palace's maiden sage, she still felt breathless when she saw so many treasures. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, did not feel anything. Not many of the treasures caught his eye. Perhaps the ones that caught his eye were still in the deeper parts. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to go deeper. Mu Yuhan collected all kinds of treasures along the way. Behind him, Kong Xian, the metal spirit rock, the golden-winged rock, and the others followed closely. Seeing these treasures, they frantically searched for them. At that moment, Jun Xiaoyaro stopped in front of the Kuan-peng nest. That was because he found something that interested him. It was a piece of green wood that looked very old. It was very inconspicuous among the pile of treasures. However, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and grabbed the piece of wood. "This is the creation wood." Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. The creation wood was an absolutely rare divine material for crafting weapons. A piece of creation wood the size of a finger was precious enough to be called a priceless treasure. And now, this piece of creation wood was as thick as an arm. Just nice. I can merge it into the creation chi cauldron. Jun Xiaoyaro was very satisfied. His creation chi cauldron needed to be refined for a long time and add all kinds of divine gold and divine materials before it could transform into an emperor weapon or even a supreme deity weapon. That's the creation wood. Kong Xian, the golden-winged rock, and the others' eyes lit up when they saw the piece of wood in Jun Xiaoyao's hand. This was a diluted divine material that was even more precious than some divine gold. However, now that the creation wood was in Jun Xiaoyao's hands, they could only look on enviously. The Gungjin rock spirit's eyes lit up like never before. He was originally a divine gold spirit. If he could get this piece of creation wood and devour it, there would definitely be a qualitative change in his level of life and cultivation. I must get this creation wood. If I devour and refine it, I will definitely be able to cultivate more than one strand of deity chi. The Gungjin rock spirit couldn't help it. His body was a divine gold, so the creation wood was obviously fatal to him. With my divine gold body, even if he attacks me, he won't be able to kill me completely. The Gungjin rock spirit was very confident in his divine gold body. He directly attacked. "Oh, is there really someone who doesn't want to die?" Seeing the Gungjin rock spirit attack, Jun Xiaoyaro was surprised. He had shown such powerful strength before, but there were still people who dared to provoke him. "This creation wood is mine." Around the Gungjin rock spirit, rich Gungjin chi gushed out and turned into thousands of golden swords that pierced towards Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with coldness. He put away the creation wood, stepped out, and grabbed the Gungjin rock spirit with both hands. "You want to fight in close combat?" The Gungjin rock spirit laughed when he saw that. He was a native genius on the Emperor's Road, so he didn't know that Jun Xiaoyaro had the sacred body of the ancients that was invincible in close combat. "My physical body is unparalleled. Even if Yi Guchen comes, he won't be able to kill me with one strike." The Gungjin rock spirit was extremely confident. "Is that so? But I'm not him, the son of God." Jun Xiaoyaro reached out to suppress the Gungjin rock spirit. The moment their physical bodies touched, the smile on the Gungjin rock spirit's face suddenly froze. It was replaced by unparalleled horror. The power of 100,000 divine elephants caused his body to crack, and it began to collapse. Then, Jun Xiaoyao tore with both hands, and the Gungjin rock spirit's body that he was so proud of was directly torn in half. No. The Gungjin rock spirit was extremely shocked. He didn't expect this at all. He struggled, trying to escape. Jun Xiaoyao took out the myriad chi cauldron again and directly suppressed the Gungjin rock spirit into it to refine it. I, the Son of God, said that I would use you as a material for refining. I will never go back on my word. Jun Xiaoyao held the myriad chi cauldron in his hand, and the Gungjin rock spirit screams came out from it. They gradually weakened and finally stopped. All the geniuses who saw that felt a chill from head to toe. Jun Xiaoyao was simply too ferocious. No matter who his opponent was, he would be able to kill them in one move without any hesitation. Seeing that, Su Biyu's pretty face turned pale. Her jade-like legs trembled, and pale yellow water dripped down. She was so scared that she wet herself. Chapter 540. Although the Gungjin rock spirit was a native prodigy on the Emperor Road, its strength was stronger than many prodigies from the Huangtian mystic realm. In addition, it was a divine metal spirit, and its body was invincible. Even a small figure who had cultivated a strand of immortal chi could not kill it in a few moves. This was why the Gungjin rock spirit dared to attack Jun Xiaoyao after seeing his strength. It thought that Jun Xiaoyao could not kill it instantly. As long as there was a chance, it could escape. However, the Gungjin rock spirit was wrong. How could it fathom Jun Xiaoyao's strength? How can a bird on the ground know the height of a swan? It is ridiculous for you to try to fathom the power of the Son of God with your shallow eyes. He then refined the Gungjin rock spirit into the universal chi cauldron. Jun Xiaoyao could feel that the universal chi cauldron's quality seemed to have improved a little. Although the improvement wasn't much, it would eventually lead to a transformation under the influence of time and effort. At this moment, the surrounding prodigies were terrified. They knew that Jun Xiaoyao was strong, but they did not expect him to be this strong. Some of the prodigies even smelled a strange smell. They looked towards the source of the smell, and their mouths twitched. Su Biyu, the saintess of the Bai Luo sect, who was famous for her beauty in the Shenyuan ancient star zone, was so scared that she peed her pants. A saintess was so scared that she peed her pants. Wouldn't she be laughed at if word got out? Su Biyu's lips were trembling. The ally she had worked so hard to recruit had died at the hands of Jun Xiaoyao. She did not even have the strength to resist. On the other hand, Mu Yuhan was smiling. Seeing Su Biyu's embarrassed look, it was impossible to say that she was not happy at all. Now, Mu Yuhan was even more glad that she met Jun Xiaoyao. If it were anyone else, they would have been suppressed by the Gungjin rock spirit. As for Kong Xian, Golden-Winged Rock, Duke Jiangfu, Duke Naohai, and the others, their eyes were filled with fear. If it was His Excellency, would he be able to instantly kill the metal spirit? Kong Xian couldn't help but speculate. After casually refining the heptagold stone spirit, Jun Xiaoyao did not waste time and continued to go deeper. He could already feel that in the deepest part of the Kuan Peng nest, there was a vigorous qi and blood boiling. The group continued to venture deeper. Not long after, they arrived at the end of the Kuan Peng nest. A vast lake appeared in front of them. Just as everyone was shocked, the entire lake suddenly began to churn. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a large black fish with golden stripes leaped into the air. After leaping into the air, he transformed into a rock and soared into the sky. His wings were like clouds hanging from the sky. It's Kuan Peng. No way. The Kuan Peng is still alive. Many of the sky prides present almost collapsed from the pressure when they felt the desolate and majestic aura. No, it's not a living creature. It's formed from the remnant aura of the Daoist patterns. Golden-Winged Rock's eyes lit up. To a certain extent, the Golden-Winged Rock and the Kuan Peng were related. Hence, Golden-Winged Rock could sense it. At that moment, the Kuan Peng landed in the middle of the lake. Everyone looked over and saw that there was a small pool of blood in the middle of the lake. Within it was bright red and resplendent blood that glowed with a golden light, like a melted blood agate. This is definitely the true blood of the Kuan Peng. Golden-winged Rock's eyelids twitched. He could not suppress the fire in his eyes. All of the Sky Pride's breathing quickened. What was even more breathtaking was that in the middle of the blood pool, there was a golden rune bone. It seemed to be imprinted with all sorts of complicated Daoist laws and patterns. At a glance, it gave people a feeling of dizziness. Could it be the Kuanping rune bone that recorded the Kuanping's mystique? All of the Sky Pride's eyes were burning. The greatest opportunity in the Kuanping nest was the true blood of the Kuanping and the Kuanping's mystique. That was also the reason why they had gathered here. However, just as they were about to take a step forward, they seemed to have thought of something and looked at the white-robed figure in front of them. Jun Xiaoyaro stood in place, looking at the blood pool and the Kuanping rune bone in surprise. However, he did not move. Since Jun Xiaoyaro did not move, the other Sky Prides did not dare to move. Time passed by slowly, but Jun Xiaoyaro still did not move. Some of the Sky Prides could not hold back anymore. Who could stand to see a mountain of gold in front of them but not pick it up? Who cares? Let's go all out. How can we walk the Emperor's road if we're so timid? One by one, the Sky Prides dashed out like arrows. Although they said that they were going all out, they were still worried. To their relief, Jun Xiaoyaro did not stop them. Seeing this, Kong Xian, Marquis Fanjiang, Marquis Chaohai, Golden-winged Rock, and the others could not hold back and dashed out. However, just as these Sky Prides were about to reach the Kuanping true blood pool, suddenly, large red fish leaped out from the large lake, with saw-like sharp teeth in their mouths, and bit at these Sky Prides. The cultivation of these large red fish was at least in the Boundary Saint realm. At this moment, there were at least a few hundred large red fish, which meant that there were hundreds of Boundary Saint realm ferocious beasts. That was extremely terrifying. Ah! Screams were heard as some of the Sky Prides were torn to pieces by the large red fish. These are red dragonfish. But they can't be this strong. Golden-winged Rock and the others were shocked. Red dragonfish had a very faint dragon clan bloodline, but even so, their potential was extremely limited and could not reach the Boundary Saint realm. As expected, it's because of the Kuanping true blood. Jun Xiaoyaro seemed to have expected this and said calmly. The aura of the Kuanping true blood powder merged into the large lake and was absorbed by these red dragonfish, causing their strength to skyrocket. No wonder. So, Master Son of God had already expected this. Mu Yuhan admired Jun Xiaoyaro even more. Being with him gave her a sense of security. Now, the hundreds of Boundary Saint red dragonfish were killing everywhere. Of course, these Emperor Road Sky Prides were not completely helpless. The scene was chaotic. It's time. Jun Xiaoyaro stepped out. He took out the universal Qi cauldron and opened a path in front. Vigorous universal Qi was rolling in the cauldron. Anything that stood in Jun Xiaoyao's way, whether it was the red dragonfish or the Emperor Road Sky Prides, as long as they came into contact with the universal Qi cauldron, they would be turned into minced meat. Jun Xiaoyaro pushed his way through and arrived at the Kuanping true blood pool. Kong Xian, Marquis Fanjiang, Marquis Chaohai, and the others gritted their teeth when they saw this. Jun Xiaoyaro reached out and grabbed the Kuanping rune bone. At that moment, a small Kuanping shadow suddenly appeared in the Kuanping rune bone. Its huge black tail swung toward Jun Xiaoyaro. You still have some sense of defense. Jun Xiaoyaro unleashed the power of 100,000 divine elephant particles. Although the immemorial Kuanping was a synonym for power, the immemorial divine elephant was not to be trifled with either. The collision between the two created a shocking shockwave that shook the surrounding space. If it were any other Sky Prides, they would definitely be turned into minced meat by the Kuanping shadow's tail. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was able to block the attack with ease. Jun Xiaoyaro dealt with the Kuanping shadow while using the universal Qi cauldron to suppress the Kuanping rune bone. However, as the universal Qi cauldron descended, the terrifying pressure was too much for the Kuanping rune bone to bear. Then, it exploded into pieces and scattered all over the place. This is our chance. Kong Xian, Marquis Fanjiang, Marquis Chaohai, and even Su Biyu could not help but make a move. If they did not take the opportunity in front of them, would they still be human? Kong Xian and the others each obtained a piece of the scattered rune bone. Although it was an incomplete Kuanpeng rune bone, it still recorded a portion of the Kuanpeng's superpower. After obtaining the Kuanpeng rune bone fragments, they did not hesitate to rush out of the Kuanpeng nest. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at them with a playful look in his eyes. Chapter 541. Kong Xian and the others wisely chose to escape after obtaining the Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment. Fight with Jun Xiaoyaro? Only if their brains were fried. Not only did Jun Xiaoyaro have a playful look in his eyes, but even Mu Yuhan shook her head slightly. Jun Xiaoyaro had already set up an inescapable trap. This time, Jun Xiaoyaro was in the atmosphere. What surprised him, however, was that one of them had also gotten a piece of the Kuanpeng talisman bone. But he did not leave. It was golden-winged rock. Interesting, golden-winged rock. Looks like you're still not convinced by this son of God. Golden-winged rock did not run away after obtaining the Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment. Did he want to fight with him? Golden-winged rock shuddered and hurriedly shook his head. No, the Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment flew over of its own accord. I did not take the initiative to fight for it. Golden-winged rock's words were true. Perhaps because he was a golden-winged rock, a Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment was attracted by his aura and flew over to him. This son of God can give you a chance to make a move, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Golden-winged rock shook his head like a rattledrum. You want to set me up again? Am I an idiot? Golden-winged rock firmly refused. Every time Jun Xiaoyaro said something like this, he would definitely lose his life if he dared to make a move. Boring, give it to me. Jun Xiaoyaro said calmly. Golden-winged rock was reluctant to part with the Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment, but he knew that he would not be able to obtain it under Jun Xiaoyao's nose. Golden-winged rock handed the Kuanpeng symbol bone fragment to Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro waved his hand again and put the pool of Kuanpeng true blood into his bag. Then, he took out a few drops and gave them to Mu Yuhan. Lord Son of God, this is too precious. Mu Yuhan was pleasantly surprised. She didn't ask for much. She was already very satisfied to be able to plunder some treasures. She did not expect that Jun Xiaoyaro would give her a few more drops of Kuanpeng true blood. Take it, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He did not lack these few drops. Mu Yuhan accepted the Kuanpeng true blood with joy on her face. Seeing that even the Kuanpeng true blood had been taken away by Jun Xiaoyaro, the remaining Sky Prides shook their heads. They were also preparing to leave. However, the son of God of the Jun family still failed to obtain the complete Kuanpeng divine ability. That's right. If the son of God of the Jun family were to obtain the Kuanpeng's magical powers, wouldn't it be even more impossible for anyone to deal with him? These Emperor Road Sky Prides discussed secretly. Let's get out of here as well, Jun Xiaoyaro said with a faint smile. He also wanted to see the look of despair on Kong Xian and the others' faces when they could not get out. On the other side, Kong Xian, Duke Fanjiang, Duke Naohai, and Su Biyu were the first to rush out of the Kuanpeng nest. Let's get out of here first. We'll decide the winner later, Kong Xian shouted. The four of them had a tacit understanding. They did not fight for the treasures right now. Instead, they decided to leave the Sea of Stars first. However, when they really left the Kuanpeng nest and wanted to escape the Sea of Stars, they suddenly bumped into the ceiling formation runes. What? What's going on? Why is there a ceiling formation rune here? Impossible. It wasn't here when we came in. These ceiling formation runes were naturally the second anti-immortal seal that Jun Xiaoyaro had set up before entering the Kuanpeng nest. Even an ordinary sage would not be able to break the second anti-immortal seal easily. Not to mention quasi-sages like them. No, impossible. Duke Fanjiang and Duke Naohai panicked. They hurriedly took out their techniques and attacked. However, the ceiling formation runes did not budge. Kong Xian also panicked. 9-colored divine light burst out from her jade-like hands, turning into 9 beams of light that pierced through the ceiling formation runes. The ceiling formation runes did not budge. Su Biyu was so panicked that she was about to cry. No matter how they attacked, they could not break the second anti-immortal seal. A sense of despair spread in their hearts. At that moment, a calm voice came from the sea of stars behind them. I've given you so much time, but you still can't break it and escape. What a pity. Although the voice was gentle, it sounded like the whispers of a demon to Kong Xian and the others. Jun Xiaoyaro leisurely walked over from behind. He was not worried that Kong Xian and the others would break the ceiling formation runes and escape with the Kuan Peng talisman bone fragments. So he still has this trick up his sleeve. No wonder the son of God of the Jun family is not panicking at all. The Emperor Road Sky Prides who followed closely behind were also speechless when they saw this. Jun Xiaoyaro was too ruthless. The golden-winged rock broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, he knew what was good for him and did not run away. Otherwise, he would be caught in a dilemma. I never thought that the great son of God of the Jun family would resort to such despicable means. Kong Xian's face darkened. Despicable? Jun Xiaoyaro laughed. Despicable is the passport of the despicable, and noble is the epitaph of the noble. I, the son of God, have never said that I am a great and honorable hero. Jun Xiaoyaro replied calmly. Aren't you afraid that others will criticize you? Kong Xian bit her lip and said. Heh. They are just jealous dogs who can't reach the heights that I, the son of God, am at. Why should I care? Jun Xiaoyaro sneered. Then, without further ado, he pointed his finger at the chaotic river Marquis and the now high Marquis. We are the followers of the sea god's third prince. Aren't you afraid that the prince will pursue this matter? The two of them screamed in horror. Jun Xiaoyaro did not even bother to say anything. He crushed the two of them with a finger, and the Kuan Peng rune bone fragment fell back into his hand. Then, Jun Xiaoyaro pointed at Su Biyu. No, Master Son of God, I am willing to be your slave, even if I am to be your bitch. Su Biyu screamed and cried as she begged for mercy. She did not want to die. Bitch. Sorry, I don't need one either. Jun Xiaoyaro pressed his finger down and crushed Su Biyu's delicate body inch by inch. Seeing this, Kong Xian felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her from head to toe. It chilled her to the bone. Now, it's your turn. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at her calmly. At this moment, the golden-winged little rock king gritted his teeth and could not help but ask, Divine Son, can you spare her life? Oh! Jun Xiaoyaro was a little surprised to hear golden-winged rock's words. He looked at Kong Xian, then at golden-winged rock. He immediately understood. I see. But are you sure you want to be the one to take over? Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. Although Kong Xian was only Jade Fozi's follower, her heart was completely devoted to Jade Fozi. She was just bewitched by Jade Fozi, golden-winged rock said. He looked at Jun Xiaoyaro, gritted his teeth, then knelt on one knee before Jun Xiaoyaro. I hope Master Son of God can spare her life. You. Even Kong Xian was a little surprised. She did not expect golden-winged rock to plead for her. Bootlicker, until you have nothing left. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head. Kong Xian had her own stubbornness. She said coldly, Master Jade Fozi will not sit by and do nothing. Your nine-headed lion is still being suppressed by him. Huh! Jun Xiaoyao's calm expression froze for a moment. A cold light flashed in his eyes. What did you say? Say it again. Leisurely literature, let the soul travel. Chapter 542. The nine-headed lion used to be your mount, didn't it? Master Arhat has suppressed it. Once Master Arhat cultivates on the infernal planet and cultivates his second strand of immortal qi, you might not be able to defeat him. Even at a time like this, Kong Xian still had absolute confidence in Jade Fozi. Go Sheng has been suppressed. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed softly. The nine-headed lion's original name was Go Sheng. Although Jun Xiaoyaro had already taken Princess Longji as his mount, the nine-headed lion used to be his mount. Jade Arhat, her? An ancient freak from Little Western Paradise. I don't know why, but I don't like this bunch of bald donkeys. Jun Xiaoyaro chuckled. How dare you insult Master Arhat? Kong Xian bit her lip. Enough. I think you've been brainwashed by that bald donkey. Golden-winged rock couldn't take it anymore and shouted. This kind of brainless, stupid woman should be beaten awake. As soon as Jun Xiaoyaro finished speaking, He took a step forward and landed in front of Kong Xian. Kong Xian's expression changed. She wasn't going to give up just like that. She let out a clear cry as 9-colored divine light shone from her body. Then, she brought out a 9-colored divine fan. There were 9 life true feathers on it. It was a life divine weapon refined from her own true feathers. Kong Xian waved the 9-colored divine fan and 9-colored divine light surged out like a tidal wave. The stars and asteroids around her exploded. As the daughter of Mahamayuri's first wife, Kong Xian was very powerful. However, Zhang Xiaoyao's gaze was still indifferent. He didn't use any theurgy. He just clenched his fist and punched. The void exploded, and a pitch-black hole appeared in it. Zhang Xiaoyao shattered the 9-colored divine fan with one punch. Kong Xian spat out a mouthful of blood after her natal divine weapon was shattered. She was still unwilling to give up. An illusory 9-colored immortal qi flowed around her body. It was the embryonic form of her immortal qi. Kill. Kong Xian punched out with the embryonic form of the 9-colored immortal qi toward Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao punched again, activating the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation. After condensing the immortal qi of reincarnation, Zhang Xiaoyao's fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation became even more powerful. However, he didn't manifest the immortal qi of reincarnation because it wasn't necessary. Boom! The void exploded, and a blast of air surged out, shaking in all directions. Many of the meteorites were shattered into pieces. Struck by the shockwave, Kong Xian's delicate body was sent flying again, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. At that moment, Zhang Xiaoyao appeared before Kong Xian as if he had teleported. He slapped her without mercy. "Divine Son, please have mercy." The little Rock King's expression changed. Zhang Xiaoyao slapped Kong Xian so hard that she was seeing stars and her face was swollen. Kong Xian's face was red and swollen. She was bleeding. The corner of her mouth was also broken. Her face was swollen. Logically speaking, when faced with such a beautiful woman, very few men would be so ruthless. However, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't mind at all. He didn't mind hitting women. Those male prodigies who said they would never hit a woman were either retarded or idiots. Golden-Winged Rock was relieved to see that Zhang Xiaoyao didn't kill Kong Xian. "Zhang Xiaoyao, kill me if you dare," Kong Xian screamed. She couldn't stand the humiliation. "I did want to kill you, but I heard you say that Jade Fozi suppressed the 9-headed lion and made it his mount. In that case, I will also suppress her followers and make them my mounts," said the Divine Son. "This is called giving her a taste of her own medicine." You want to make me your mount?" Kong Xian was stunned. She didn't expect Zhang Xiaoyao to have such a plan. Then, she shook her head in fear. "No, I'm Master Fozi's follower. You can't ride me." Kong Xian turned around and was about to leave. She would rather die than be ridden by Zhang Xiaoyao. If she was ridden by Zhang Xiaoyao, would Jade Fozi still want her as his follower? Obviously not. Jade Fozi wouldn't want a woman who was ridden by someone else as his follower. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were calm. He turned to Golden-Winged Rock and said, "Little Rock King, you don't mind if I ride the woman you like, right?" Golden-Winged Rock's mouth twitched. He forced a stiff smile and said, No, I don't mind. As long as Master Son of God can spare her life." The Emperor Road's Sky Prides present had a strange look on their faces. Why did they feel that Zhang Xiaoyao's move had made Jade Fozi and Little Rock King a cuckold? Zhang Xiaoyao stretched out a hand. Mist billowed and divine light surged. It was like Buddha's 5-finger mountain, suppressing Kong Xian. Kong Xian tried her best to resist, but in the end, she was powerless. With a scream, she was beaten back to her original form, a beautiful 9-colored peacock. Zhang Xiaoyao took a step forward and landed on the 9-colored peacock's back. The 9-colored peacock's body glowed with divine light. It wanted to shake off Zhang Xiaoyao. However, Zhang Xiaoyao stomped his foot. The 9-colored peacock let out a cry and finally stopped struggling. "That's right. Since Jade Fozi suppressed my mount, I'll suppress his follower and make her my mount. Isn't that reasonable?" Zhang Xiaoyao said. Everyone's mouth twitched when they heard that. "Listen, is that even human?" After suppressing Kong Xian, Zhun Xiaoyao also obtained all the Kuan-Peng talisman bone fragments. In the end, they merged into one and formed a complete Kuan-Peng talisman bone. The biggest opportunity of fortune in the Kuan-Peng nest, the Kuan-Peng talisman bone, the Kuan-Peng true blood, and the builder wood, had all fallen into Zhun Xiaoyao's hands. As for the resources that the other sky prides had plundered, Zhun Xiaoyao did not care about them at all. At that moment, the remaining sky prides of Emperor Road who had survived were extremely nervous. They were afraid that Zhun Xiaoyao would force them to hand over their opportunity of fortune. Zhun Xiaoyao raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Instantly, the surrounding sealing runes disappeared. "You may leave now," Zhun Xiaoyao said. "Thank you, Master Son of God. Master Son of God, you're so magnanimous. I'm impressed. Master Son of God is the most handsome. We love you." Some female sky prides screamed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They suddenly felt that Zhun Xiaoyao was quite benevolent and kind. After the sky prides expressed their gratitude respectfully, they dispersed as well. However, the golden-winged roc did not leave. "Do you have something else to say?" Zhun Xiaoyao glanced at the golden-winged roc. Although he had some conflicts with the golden-winged roc in the past, he was still very much in control. In his eyes, the golden-winged roc was not even a nuisance. The golden-winged roc was as insignificant as a speck of dust. Therefore, as long as the golden-winged roc behaved himself, he would not kill the golden-winged roc for no reason. The golden-winged roc's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. Then, he knelt down on one knee in front of Zhun Xiaoyao again. "I have a presumptuous request. I hope that Son of God can grant me some of the Kuan-Peng true blood." "What do you need the Kuan-Peng true blood for?" Zhun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows slightly. He had already collected an entire pool of Kuan-Peng true blood. 1 or 2 drops of it were nothing to him. "Because I want to challenge you, Physique." The golden-winged roc's eyes were sharp and filled with determination. LT Div. Chapter 543. The golden-winged roc was interested in the Kuan-Peng nest. To a large extent, he wanted to obtain the Kuan-Peng mystique and the Kuan-Peng true blood so that he could evolve and challenge Jade Physique. He wanted Kong Xian to know that Jade Physique was also a human, not a god. He could also be defeated. "How dare you challenge Master Physique?" The 9-colored peacock spoke in human language. Clearly, she was not happy with the golden-winged roc's words. Her master Physique was not someone that anyone could challenge. "If you make any more noise, you can't even be my mount. I'll stew you," Zhun Xiaoyao said coldly. The 9-colored peacock stopped talking. She wanted to live. She wanted to see Jade Physique defeat Zhun Xiaoyao with his own hands. The golden-winged roc ignored Kong Xian. Instead, he looked at Zhun Xiaoyao and said, "I don't want the Kuan-Peng mystique. I only want a few drops of the Son of God's true blood. I'm willing to be your follower." Mu Yuhan was shocked when she heard this. Although the golden-winged roc was not one of the top sky prides on Emperor Road, he was still on the Baron Sky Saint leaderboard. It was surprising that he would ask to be Yi Futian's follower. "You are not qualified." Zhun Xiaoyao shook his head calmly. The golden-winged little roc king's talent was indeed not weak, but all of his followers were peerless talents. They were either descendants of the ancient monarch tribes, or had the ability to devour everything. Otherwise, they had the rare reincarnation sacred constitution. Compared to these people, the golden-winged roc was indeed not good enough. The golden-winged roc was also stunned. He did not expect the gap between him and Zhun Xiaoyao to be so wide that he was not even qualified to be his follower. However, on second thought, it was true. Without the Kuan-Peng Grand Art and Kuan-Peng True Blood, the golden-winged roc wasn't even qualified to challenge Jade Physique. Golden-winged roc lowered his head and clenched his fists. He was unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, Zhun Xiaoyao spoke again. "However, I can give you a few drops of Kuan-Peng True Blood." Golden-winged roc raised his head abruptly, his eyes glinting. Is what Son of God said true? His mood was on a roller coaster ride. At this moment, he was incomparably happy. Of course. When has this Son of God ever gone back on his word? Zhun Xiaoyao said. He wasn't pitying them. He just wanted to watch the show. Even if it was just to disgust Jade Fozzie a little, it would still be good. Jun Xiaoyao loved to watch a show from the sidelines. Thank you, Son of God. I'm willing to follow by your side. Golden-winged rock cupped his fists, his eyes filled with excitement. He did not expect Jun Xiaoyao to give him the Kuan-Peng Grand Art. It was already a pleasant surprise that he was given a few drops of Kuan-Peng True Blood. Jun Xiaoyao waved his hand and gave a few drops of Kuan-Peng True Blood to Golden-Winged Rock. As for the Kuan-Peng Grand Art, he naturally would not give it to Golden-Winged Rock. He just wanted to watch the show. It was not like he was doing charity. Master Son of God, where are we going next? Mu Yuhan asked. After this battle, Jun Xiaoyao must have shocked many sky prides. Jade Fozzie, the Void Sword Master, the Sea God's third prince, and the others would not turn a blind eye. Let's go to Jade Gate Pass first. I need to digest this opportunity, Jun Xiaoyao said. Now that he was at the 9th level of the Emperor Road, he was not in a hurry. He could first digest the Kuan-Peng Grand Art and half of the Space Scroll. Next, Jun Xiaoyao sat on Kong Xian's 9-colored peacock and headed to Jade Gate Pass with Mu Yuhan and Golden-Winged Rock. When Jun Xiaoyao returned to Jade Gate Pass, many sky prides had already returned from the Kuan-Peng nest. News about Jun Xiaoyao had naturally spread far and wide. Who would have thought that the Jun family's Son of God would reappear? He's so powerful that he could kill the Kai, a saint at the Great Perfection stage, with a single move. And the Void Sword Master. Although he was just a spiritual body, he was still very powerful. In the end, he was still killed by the Jun family's Son of God in a single move. And the Gungjin Rock Spirit. It has a divine body. Even Yi Guchen, the first on the Barren Sky Saint leaderboard, could not kill it with a single move. How do you think these two will react when they meet? Will the Jun family's Son of God be able to take the first place on the Saint leaderboard and become the king of this imperial road? At this moment, the Jade Gate Pass was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone was talking about Jun Xiaoyao. Because Jun Xiaoyao was too legendary. He had entered the Bronze Divine Palace, which was almost certain death, and yet he had come out alive. Not only that, although he had missed the period of the spirit chi recovery, his cultivation was not lagging behind. Instead, it was higher than most people. Now that he had stepped onto the Imperial Road, he was even more powerful. These people did not know about the Battle of the Immortals in the Barren Sky Mystic Realm and Jun Xiaoyao's record of killing hundreds of saints with a single cauldron. If they had known, they would have been hundreds or even thousands of times more shocked than they were now. Not long after, Jun Xiaoyao and the others arrived at Jade Gate Pass. Jade Gate Pass was just as majestic as before. Moonlight fell and galaxies surrounded it. It was a magnificent sight that had stood tall since ancient times. Jun Xiaoyao and the others had caused a stir before they even entered Jade Gate Pass. Oh my God, it's the Son of God of the Jun family. Is that the Son of God of the Jun family? He's so handsome. Is that peacock that the Son of God of the Jun family is sitting on Kong Xian? Holy Sha *T, Yu Fozzie's follower, Kong Xian, is being used as a mount by the Son of God of the Jun family. If I were Yu Fozzie, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stay calm. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival caused a stir in the Jade Gate Pass. Seeing such a scene, Jun Xiaoyao even had the illusion that he was a fanatic fan from his previous life. A captain guarding the pass saw Jun Xiaoyao and his eyes flashed with surprise. He then went up respectfully and cupped his hands slightly. May I ask if you are the Son of God of the Jun family? Yes, and you are. Jun Xiaoyao said. Could it be that he's here to cause trouble like the captain of the Sword Gate Pass? I am the captain of the Jade Gate Pass. Under the orders of the Lord Guardian, I have prepared a residence for Lord Son of God. Please follow me. The captain of the soldiers respectfully led the way for Jun Xiaoyao. All the geniuses in the Jade Gate Pass were dumbfounded. When they first arrived at the Jade Gate Pass, the captain's attitude was extremely cold. He even refused to let some of the weaker geniuses enter the pass. Now, however, Jun Xiaoyao was treated with such courtesy. Even the high and mighty Lord Protector had prepared a place for him to stay. Is this the difference between people? Some of the geniuses were dejected. They worked hard to climb to a higher position. However, someone was born to stand at the top and be respected. That's very thoughtful of you, Jun Xiaoyaro said lightly and did not refuse. Under the captain's lead, he came to a blessed place with extremely rich spirit qi. It was almost comparable to the spirit qi in the Kuan Peng nest. It's just nice. It's convenient for me to cultivate. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. He decided to spend half a month to comprehend the Kuan Peng Grand Theurgy. The golden-winged roc and Mu Yuhan also went to cultivate. As for Kong Xian, Jun Xiaoyaro had already set up a seal. She could not escape at all. Let's start cultivating now, Jun Xiaoyaro said to himself. If it were other geniuses, even if they obtained the Kuan Peng Grand Theurgy, it would be difficult for them to completely master it in a few months to a year. However, with Jun Xiaoyao's monstrous comprehension, cultivating any theurgy was as easy as eating and drinking. Not to mention, with the help of the Kuan Peng True Blood, it was even easier for him to cultivate. Just as Jun Xiaoyaro was immersed in cultivation, the news about the Kuan Peng nest and Jun Xiaoyaro gradually spread. Yu Fuzi and the others also heard the news. LT Div. Chapter 544. There were more than 1,000 Sky Prides who participated in the Kuan Peng nest's opportunity. In the end, there were also a few hundred who left alive. Therefore, news about Jun Xiaoyaro could not be hidden at all. He had killed the Void Swordmaster's spirit body, killed the Sea God's third prince's follower, and even suppressed Yu Fuzi's follower, Kong Xian, to become his mount. It could be said that Jun Xiaoyaro had offended 3 top-notch Sky Prides in the Emperor Road in just one opportunity. Moreover, all 3 of them had cultivated a strand of immortal qi. If an ordinary person had offended 3 of them, they would definitely panic and feel that their future was bleak. Jun Xiaoyaro seemed to have nothing to do with it as he cultivated leisurely. Many Sky Prides in the Jade Gate Pass were amazed. As expected of the son of God of the Jun family, he was not afraid of any challenge at all. Of course, Yu Fuzi and the others could not turn a blind eye to it. At the 12th stage of the Emperor Road, inside a Buddhist temple, Yu Fuzi, who was dressed in a jade-white Buddhist robe, sat cross-legged on a futon. His long hair fell to the ground, and his face was like jade. He looked like a handsome Buddha carved from jade. There was more than one strand of immortal qi around his body. However, the second strand of immortal qi seemed a little illusory. It was obviously just a prototype and was not solid. Yu Fuzi had also received news about the Kuan Peng nest and Kong Xian. Suppressing Kong Xian to become your mount, Jun Xiaoyao, are you expressing your dissatisfaction with me suppressing the 9-headed lion? Yu Fuzi muttered to himself. The 9-headed lion, who was being suppressed at the side, was so happy that it almost burst into tears when it heard Jun Xiaoyao's name. Haha, I knew it. Master will never die. He will step onto the Emperor Road. He will come to save me. The 9-headed lion roared. He was extremely excited, and his previous depression was swept away. Are you sure he's here to save you and not to die? Yu Fuzi was still smiling like a Buddha, but his eyes were filled with cold light. You bald donkey, you can't fathom what Master is capable of. Your follower must have been trained by Master to a pulp. The 9-headed lion was just about to say something when Jade Fozi waved his hand. The 9-headed lion's 9 mouths were sealed at the same time, and it could only make muffled sounds. You dare to use my follower as a mount? Jun Xiaoyao, you are very courageous. If I can convert you, you would make a good servant. Jade Fozi smiled. He never killed anyone. He only knew how to convert. However, Jade Fozi wasn't going to look for Jun Xiaoyao right now. Because the infernal star was about to open, he needed to enter and search for immortal quintessence to completely condense the second strand of immortal qi. When the time came, he would have a greater chance of success. Jade Fozi hadn't made a move yet, but the news had spread. Many people had only one reaction when they heard that Jade Fozi was going to convert Jun Xiaoyao into a slave. He was just stunned. Converting the son of God of the Jun family into a slave was not something an ordinary person would dare to say. Is Jade Fozi crazy? How dare he say something like that? Jade Fozi is a powerful person who is about to cultivate 2 strands of immortal qi. I heard that the son of God of the Jun family is also in the saint realm, but he has never shown any immortal chi. Maybe he hasn't cultivated successfully yet. Immortal chi was not only a trump card, but also the most obvious way to measure a person's potential. Ever since Jun Xiaoyaro stepped onto the imperial road, he had never shown any immortal chi in the eyes of others. Therefore, many people thought that Jun Xiaoyao's strength might have caught up, but he hadn't had the time to condense immortal chi. In comparison, without any immortal chi, he was obviously at a disadvantage. What was even more shocking was that Jade Fuozi wasn't the only one who said that. On a mountain peak in another realm of the 12 stages of the Emperor Road, a swordsman in a green robe, the Void Swordsman, sat cross-legged on the peak. He was also waiting for the infernal star to open. How dare he destroy one of my spiritual bodies? That Jun Xiaoyaro is really despicable. The Void Swordsman's eyes were as sharp as swords. However, Jun Xiaoyao's strength and methods did indeed make him a little wary. But why do I have a feeling that Jun Xiaoyaro has something that attracts me? If I can get it, it might be of great help to me. The Void Swordsman thought to himself. Then, he took out half a dark golden scroll. The surrounding space rippled slightly. It was half a scroll of the spacebook. I've been studying half a scroll of the spacebook since I was young. Finally, I'm about to condense the second strand of immortal chi. When I get to the infernal star and obtain enough immortal essence, I can completely condense the second strand of immortal chi. There's also that Jun Xiaoyaro. If I kill him, I might be able to get what I want. The Void Swordsman's eyes flashed coldly. He had already lost to Yi Guchen. He could not afford to lose to Jun Xiaoyaro. The Void Swordsman had also said that if Jun Xiaoyaro had the guts to come to the 12th level of the Emperor Road, he would be there in person. For a moment, everyone was shocked again. However, that was not the only thing. In the void of the Emperor Road, a gorgeous aqua-blue dragon boat was sailing toward the 12th level of the Emperor Road at an extremely fast speed. Inside the dragon boat, a handsome young man wearing the Seven Seas serpent armor and holding the Sea King's trident sat on a throne inlaid with luminous pearls. His expression was cold. Around him, some beautiful women who served him felt the cold atmosphere. They stood with their hands by their sides, trembling, and did not dare to speak. The Kuanpeng's grand magic and the Kuanpeng's true blood are both gone. And Marquis River Churning and Marquis Chowhai are also dead. What a son of God of the Jun family. This handsome young man was the third prince of the sea god from the ancient star region of the Sea King. Although he was a genius from the ancient star region, his strength was no weaker than the descendants of the immortal forces of the Huangtian mystic realm. This time, he sent 2 of his followers to the Kuanpeng's nest because the Kuanpeng's grand magic was extremely important to him. If he could get his hands on it, his strength would skyrocket. But now, it was all taken away by Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro, the number 1 of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm, but he has not cultivated divine qi. He is nothing. The third prince of the sea god's eyes flashed coldly. Not long after, there was another piece of news. The third prince of the sea god was also going to meet the son of God of the Jun family at the 12th level of the Emperor Road. For a moment, from the 9th to the 12th level, all kinds of news spread. Many geniuses were excited and were ready to go to the 12th level to watch the show. One should know that there were 2 parties involved in this clash. On one side was the legendary son of God of the Jun family, who was invincible among the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm. On the other side was Yu Fuzi, the Void Swordsman, and the third prince of the sea god. These 3 were famous figures in the Emperor Road. It could be said that a clash of this level was very rare even in the Emperor Road. It would be the center of attention. Let's go to the 12th level of the Emperor Road. Maybe we can witness a battle that will shake the entire Emperor Road. Also, the infernal star is about to open. There will be more variables by then, and it will be more interesting. Many geniuses boarded various starry flying ships and set off for the 12th level of the Emperor Road. Meanwhile, Jun Xiaoyaro, who was in the eye of the storm, was still cultivating in the Jade Gate Pass Blessed Enclave. After about half a month, Jun Xiaoyaro finally opened his eyes. In an instant, a vast and terrifying aura shot up into the sky, bringing with it an ancient force that swept across all directions. At the same time, a fourth divine qi vaguely appeared on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body. Chapter 545. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao's aura was incomparably powerful. There was a wild aura emanating from him, as if an ancient beast had come to the present world. His palms began to flip and shift. His palms evolved into a mysterious trajectory, as if a kunpeng was flipping. His palms suddenly swept forward like a kunpeng swinging its tail, causing the void in front of him to explode. There were spatial cracks spreading. Then, Jun Xiaoyao's mysterious trajectory changed again. It was as if a kuan fish had risen from the sea and transformed into a kuan peng that covered the sky. His other palm swept out like a kuan peng spreading its wings, directly splitting the void in front of him again. It was as if countless kuan peng sword feathers were sweeping across. Finally, Jun Xiaoyao's figure suddenly rose into the air, and the phantom of a kuan peng seemed to appear behind him. His peerless divine appearance in white seemed to have merged with the phantom of the kuan peng, transforming into a powerful kunpeng divine form. It struck the 9 heavens above and the 9 underworlds below, surging with divine power. Is this the kunpeng divine power? It really lives up to its name. Jun Xiaoyao was speechless. The kunpeng divine power was on par with the true dragon divine power, the divine phoenix divine power, and the thunder emperor divine power. They were all rare divine powers in the world. And its power did not disappoint Jun Xiaoyao. The evolution of this kunpeng is a bit similar to the kunpeng divine form that the heavenly tyrant body had previously evolved. Could it be that the ancient heavenly tyrant body had merged with the kunpeng divine power after obtaining the kunpeng divine power and transformed into one of the 9 great divine forms of the tyrant body? Jun Xiaoyao guessed. This kunpeng divine power indeed reminded him of the battle with the ancient tyrant body, Chu Tianba, in the eternal burial ground. Chu Tianba had evolved one of the 9 great divine forms of the tyrant body, the kunpeng divine form. Thinking of Chu Tianba, Jun Xiaoyao could not help but think of another matter. It was the overlord that Chu Tianba had mentioned. The strongest heavenly tyrant body that was destined to rise in this era. If that overlord really appears, we might meet on the ancient road, Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. The saintly Physique and the mighty Physique were fated enemies. Even though it was unlikely for him to run into the overlord on the imperial road that belonged to the Huangtian mystic realm, he was still worried about the overlord. However, it was clear that he might encounter the legendary overlord on the ultimate ancient road where the 9 emperor roads intersected. Forget it. What's the point of thinking about this now? Jun Xiaoyao shook his head slightly. Right now, all he needed to do was to solve the problem at hand. The use of the kunpeng's grand abhina is not just about attacking. As Jun Xiaoyao spoke, his footsteps flashed. In an instant, there seemed to be a mysterious space Dao pattern spreading out from under his feet. His figure flashed across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Kunpeng extreme speed. Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. This was also one of the abilities of the kunpeng. Most importantly, this ability was related to space. The half of the spacebook that he possessed also recorded the exquisite space Dao. There were some similarities between the two. Thinking of this, Jun Xiaoyao's body trembled slightly. On the surface of his body, the 4th embryonic form of immortal qi appeared. This immortal qi was translucent and carried with it the power of space. This was the 4th immortal qi that Jun Xiaoyao condensed after comprehending the Wukong book and the kunpeng's grand abhina. Immortal qi in the void. This immortal qi was the concrete manifestation of the space Dao. However, this was still only an embryonic form of immortal qi and not a complete immortal qi. It seems that I have to look for an opportunity to condense immortal qi. Jun Xiaoyao thought. If he could condense this immortal qi in the void, then Jun Xiaoyao's control of space and extreme speed in the void would improve tremendously. There's still more than half of the kunpeng's true blood left. I'll save it for the next breakthrough, Jun Xiaoyao said. Jun Xiaoyao could roughly comprehend the kunpeng's grand abhina in just half a month. In addition to his monstrous comprehension, part of the reason was that he had refined part of the kunpeng's true blood. This way, it would be easier to cultivate the kunpeng's grand abhina. Jun Xiaoyaro walked out of his residence and saw that Mu Yuhan and the golden-winged roc were already standing outside. They had been alarmed by Jun Xiaoyao's aura and thus came over. When she saw Jun Xiaoyaro, Mu Yuhan took a deep breath. She could feel that Jun Xiaoyao's aura had become even more unfathomable and his strength was also stronger than before. As for the golden-winged roc, he could clearly feel the change in Jun Xiaoyao's strength. He cupped his hands and asked, "May I ask, Son of God, have you started to comprehend the Kuan Peng's grand abhina?" Jun Xiaoyaro tilted his head and said, "I'm almost done with it. I still need some time to practice and study." "What?" Upon hearing this, the little golden-winged roc king seemed to have been struck by lightning. It had only been half a month and Jun Xiaoyaro had already comprehended the Kuan Peng's grand abhina. Even if the golden-winged roc had obtained the Kuan Peng's grand abhina, it would take at least a few months or even half a year to master it with the help of his great golden-winged roc bloodline. But in half a month, Jun Xiaoyaro had already comprehended it completely. The golden-winged roc was completely impressed. Master Son of God is indeed the strongest. How dare Jade Fozi and the others provoke him? They must be tired of living, Mu Yuhan said. "Oh, I didn't know that. Tell me about it," Jun Xiaoyaro said. He had been in seclusion for half a month and did not know what was going on outside, so he did not know what was going on outside. Mu Yuhan had also told Jun Xiaoyaro all the recent news. "Jade Fozi wants to convert me and take me as a slave. And the Void Sword Master, the third prince of the Sea God, and the others want to attack me as well." Jun Xiaoyaro smiled after hearing the story. Why were there always so many people in this world who did not know their own strength? At this moment, the nine-colored peacock lying in the distance said, "I told you, Master Fozi will not let you go." Jun Xiaoyaro looked up and said, "Are you itching for a beating again? Do you need a lesson?" With that, Jun Xiaoyaro stepped forward and came behind the nine-colored peacock, which was Kong Shen's real body. He pulled out the feathers on the nine-colored peacock's butt. "I can make a good nine-colored feather fan." Jun Xiaoyaro clicked his tongue. "Ah! You!" The nine-colored peacock, who was Kong Shen, screamed in disbelief. The feather on her butt was plucked off by Jun Xiaoyaro. This was a great humiliation to Mahamayuri's bloodline. The nine-colored peacock trembled. There was a bald patch on her butt. It felt as if someone had taken off her underwear. "Make any more noise and I'll pull out all your feathers." "Let's see Jade Fozi's expression then," Jun Xiaoyaro said. The nine-colored peacock lowered her head and did not dare to say anything else. She was afraid that Jun Xiaoyaro would really pull out all her feathers. Then she would not be able to face anyone. So this is what Master Son of God likes, Mu Yuhan thought to herself. She even thought that Jun Xiaoyaro might have things like whips and candles in his spatial artifact. "By the way, do you know where I can find an opportunity to condense immortal qi?" Jun Xiaoyaro asked. His immortal qi of the void had taken shape. All he needed to do now was to completely condense it. Chapter 546. Master Son of God is finally starting to condense immortal qi, Mu Yuhan thought to herself. Beside her, golden-winged roc said, "Son of God, what a coincidence. The infernal star at Hulao Pass, one of the 12 checkpoints of the Emperor Road, is about to open. You might be able to find immortal marrow there." Infernal star, immortal marrow? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed. He did not know much about the infernal star, but he knew about immortal marrow. It was a cultivation item of a higher grade than immortal source. Even supremes would use immortal marrow for cultivation. However, immortal marrow was too rare. Even in the vast Huangtian mystic realm, it was difficult to find such a rare item. Therefore, it could not be used as a currency like celestial sources and immortal sources. However, Jun Xiaoyaro did not expect that there would be a place on the Emperor Road where one could obtain immortal marrow. As for the infernal star, from the name alone, it sounded like a very dangerous place to train. However, Jun Xiaoyaro did not care. He even dared to enter the Bronze Immortal Palace, one of the 7 wonders. Why would he be afraid of a mere infernal star? By the way, Master Son of God, Yu Fuzi, and the others are also at Hulao Pass, waiting for the infernal star to open, Mu Yuhan said. Since it's on the way, I'll deal with them all and end their lives, Jun Xiaoyaro said calmly. He spoke so casually that it sounded like he was going to kill pigs and dogs. Only Master Son of God would have such courage, Mu Yuhan said admiringly. Golden-winged rock said, I hope Son of God will let me deal with you Fuzi first. After refining the Kuanping true blood, Golden-winged rock's aura was much stronger than before. As you wish. Jun Xiaoyaro did not mind. After resting for a few more days, Jun Xiaoyaro sat on the 9-colored peacock and set off with Mu Yuhan and Golden-winged rock. When they left the Jade Gate Pass, many geniuses were watching. There were even more people who followed behind them, wanting to watch a good show. The Son of God of the Jun family is going up against the 3 big shots. This is going to be a good show. The geniuses were all excited. From the 9th stage to the 12th stage, Jun Xiaoyaro and the others had spent several months. During this time, Mu Yuhan also told Jun Xiaoyaro some things about Infernal Star. There were rumors about the formation of the Infernal Star because too many Sky Prides had died on the Emperor Road. The unwillingness, resentment, anger, hatred, and jealousy of these prodigies when they were alive converged into a monstrous wave of resentment and karma, eventually forming the Hellstar. On Hellstar, there were many murderous demons, demonic beasts, vengeful spirits, and so on. It was an extremely dangerous training ground. Of course, there were also many heavenly materials and earthly treasures, including immortal marrow that could help condense immortal chi. In short, danger and opportunity coexisted. When Mu Yuhan mentioned such a dangerous place, her expression turned solemn. However, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were indifferent. He did not seem to care at all. To him, such a dangerous place was nothing more than his own backyard. After several months, Jun Xiaoyaro finally arrived at the 12th stage of the Emperor Road, Hulao Pass. Hulao Pass was grand and majestic. It was quiet and serene above the stars. Compared to the previous stages, Hulao Pass was more desolate and ancient. The city walls were dark and mottled, carrying with them an ancient aura. Before Jun Xiaoyaro had even entered Hulao Pass, he had already attracted the attention of everyone. It's the Son of God of the Jun family. He's here. That's right. His mount is indeed Kong Xian. And the 2 Sky Prides, Golden-winged Rock and Mu Yuhan, have actually become the Son of God's left and right attendants. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival had undoubtedly ignited the atmosphere of the entire Hulao Pass. Even the soldiers guarding the city were secretly speechless. The arrival of a Sky Pride had never caused such a huge commotion like Jun Xiaoyao. Was this the influence of a top-notch Sky Pride of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm? Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm as he entered Hulao Pass. None of the soldiers were foolish enough to stop him. After entering Hulao Pass, Jun Xiaoyaro could sense many powerful auras lying dormant. Although they were nothing in his eyes, they were considered top-notch Sky Prides in the Emperor Road. As expected, the further I go on the Emperor Road, the stronger the Sky Prides I encounter will be, Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. However, what surprised him was that he did not sense the auras of Yu Fuzi and the others. Many female cultivators around him looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with bright eyes. They had seen Yu Fuzi, the sea god's 3rd prince, and the others before. They were all extremely handsome people. However, compared to Jun Xiaoyaro, it was like comparing a firefly to the moon. There was no comparison at all. Jun Xiaoyaro was the perfect kind of handsomeness. There were also some male cultivators who looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with admiration in their eyes. They saw him as a goal to strive for. Of course, not everyone was like that. Jun Xiaoyaro was also able to sense some coldness and hostility from them. Among the crowd, there was a living being whose body was shining with golden light. There were many mysterious patterns on its surface, as if it was a man carved out of metal. It's him, Jin Guxuan. Rumor has it that he was formed from a kind of supreme metal. He's a good friend of the Gungjin rock spirit. Some people were slightly surprised when they saw that living being. On the other side, there was a beautiful woman in a red dress. She looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with cold eyes. While Jun Xiaoyao's appearance dazzled her for a brief moment, it did not change her stance on the matter. It's Hong Ling. She's the ancient freak of Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, the follower of Huang Jiuyan. Huang Jiuyan was one of the top Sky Prides in this Emperor Road. He cultivated the Phoenix life chant, and every time he was pushed to the brink of death, he would be transformed. It was said that Huang Zhouyan had already transformed 7 times. If he was allowed to transform 9 times, he would have the terrifying potential to compete for the throne of the Emperor Road. The son of God of the Jun family is indeed extraordinary. However, when my young master transforms 9 times, he will not be afraid of the son of God of the Jun family. Hong Ling was very confident in Huang Zhouyan. There was also a young man with green wings on his back. He looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with a contemplative look in his eyes. It's Long Shuhuang's follower, the successor of the Azure Sky Rock clan, Qing Hong. Some people looked at him. This was another top Sky Pride's follower. Clearly, many people in front of the Emperor Road were paying attention to Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro had unknowingly become a sword of Damocles above the heads of all the Sky Prides in the Emperor Road. Jun Xiaoyaro was a huge threat to all the Sky Prides who wanted to compete for the throne of the Emperor Road. In the dark, there was a cloaked man in a black robe who was also observing Jun Xiaoyaro. Unlike Hong Ling, Qing Hong, Jin Guxuan, and the others, he did not attract the attention of the Sky Prides around him. The son of God of the Jun family. Is he this generation's sacred body of the ancients? His aura is indeed strong, but master is still stronger. When mentioning his master, the black-robed man's tone was filled with fanaticism. His master was destined to step on the remains of the sacred body of the ancients and reach the peak of this era. Chapter 547. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival at Hulao Pass caused a commotion everywhere. However, what confused Jun Xiaoyaro was that he did not sense the auras of Yufuozi and the others. Naturally, Jun Xiaoyaro did not think that Yufuozi and the others feared him. Just at this moment, the sound of waves came from the space in front. A woman with aqua-blue curly hair emerged from a wave formed by Dao inscriptions. Her upper body was that of a human, and her skin was as white as ivory. Her chest was covered by a shell. Her lower body was that of a silver fish tail. Her scales shone, looking very beautiful. This was a mermaid. It's the mermaid race of the Sea Monarch's ancient astral domain. She is the princess of the mermaid race, Yu Mairen. She is also one of the sea god's 3rd crown prince's Dao companions. Upon seeing Yu Mairen, many outstanding talents exclaimed. Yu Mairen looked at Jun Xiaoyaro in a daze for a moment. She thought that her Dao companion, the sea god's 3rd crown prince, was already handsome enough. However, this white-clad young master before her was even more handsome than the sea god's 3rd crown prince. Yu Mairen calmed herself and said, His Highness, the 3rd crown prince, will be waiting for you at the Dao Plaza outside the Underworld Star. I hope that you will not be afraid to go. The Underworld Star's Dao Plaza, Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. Yu Mairen continued, Of course, the 3rd crown prince also said that as long as you are willing to hand over the Kuan Peng great magic skill and the Kuan Peng true blood and apologize to him, he might forgive you. These words silenced the entire Hulao Pass for a moment. Previously, Yufuozi wanted to convert Jun Xiaoyaro and take him in as a servant. Then, the sea god's 3rd crown prince wanted Jun Xiaoyaro to hand over the fortuitous encounter and apologize. Even Jun Xiaoyaro was slightly stunned by what he saw. When did he become so shameless? Now, everyone dared to say such harsh words to him. Mu Yuhan and the golden-winged roc, who were at the side, berated at the same time, Who does the sea god's 3rd crown prince think he is? How dare he threaten the son of God? Yu Mairen shook her head slightly and said, In this era, heroes rise together. It is not a stage for the Jun family's son of God alone. You have offended His Royal Highness the 3rd Prince. You'd better behave yourself. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded and said, You're right. I really should consider what kind of gift I should give to the sea god's 3rd prince. Upon hearing this, all the Emperor Road Sky Prides in Hulao Pass were dumbfounded. The son of God of the Jun family, who had always been domineering and flamboyant, was actually keeping a low profile. Just as everyone thought so, Jun Xiaoyaro continued to smile and said, What do you think about using your head as an apology? Hearing this, Yu Mairen's expression immediately changed. However, before she could react, a voice rang out. Jun Xiaoyaro took a step forward, and a mysterious spatial Dao pattern spread out from under his feet. Vaguely, the shadow of a Kuan Peng appeared behind him. It was the Kuan Peng's extreme speed. It all happened in the blink of an eye, and before anyone could react, Zhong Xian was stunned. In the blink of an eye, Jun Xiaoyaro was already in front of Yu Mairen. Yu Mairen retreated instinctively and screamed at the same time, "Son of God of the Jun family, are you crazy? This is Hulao Pass. How dare you make a move?" Fighting was not allowed in the 18 city passes of the Emperor Road. This was an ironclad rule. What are the rules in front of this son of God? Jun Xiaoyao's tone was indifferent. He waved his palm forward, revealing a mysterious trajectory. Like a Kuan Peng swinging its tail, he attacked Yu Mairen. No. Yu Mairen tried her best to resist, but how could she resist the might of the Kuan Peng's grand magic? Her beautiful body exploded almost instantly. Blood splattered everywhere, and broken bones flew everywhere. Only a beautiful head remained in its original state. The last expression on her beautiful face was one of horror and disbelief. She never thought that Jun Xiaoyaro would attack her in front of everyone in Hulao Pass. Moreover, envoys were not killed when two nations were at war. Yu Mairen was only here to pass on a message, and she died in the Yellow Springs. This death was too unjust. After killing Yu Mairen, Jun Xiaoyaro flung his wrist, and Yu Mairen's head flew towards Mu Yuhan. Wrap it well. Didn't the sea god's third crown prince want to apologize? I wonder if he likes this gift. Seeing Yu Mairen's head flying over, Mu Yuhan's body trembled slightly. She quickly took out a piece of cloth and wrapped it up. As for all the outstanding talents in Hulao Pass, they were like clay statues. They stood there in a daze, unable to recover their wits for a long time. Yu Mairen could be considered a peerless talent. In the end, Jun Xiaoyaro killed her with one slap. It was easier than killing a chicken. Murder. The Jun family's son of God killed someone in the city pass. Where are the city guards? Are they not going to do anything? Why would they care? Didn't you hear? Previously, the Jun family's son of God killed someone in Sword Gate Pass. Even the city guards came out to apologize. Many discussions broke out in the surroundings. He actually mastered the Kuanpeng's great magic in such a short time. Hong Ling, Qing Hong, Jin Guxuan, and the others also had fear in their eyes. On the one hand, they were afraid of Jun Xiaoyao's decisiveness. On the other hand, they were surprised that Jun Xiaoyaro was able to directly perform the Kuanpeng's great magic. As for the black-robed cloaked man hiding in the dark, he was also surprised. He said, "This generation's sacred body of the ancients is indeed not weak." The entire Hulao Pass was shaken by Jun Xiaoyaro. At that moment, a captain braced himself and stepped forward. There was still a trace of shock in his eyes. Seeing this scene, many of the Emperor Road's outstanding talents were surprised. Was this captain here to denounce Yi Futian? Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at the captain indifferently. Smack. The captain's legs went soft, and he tripped and fell to the ground. He then got up awkwardly and respectfully cupped his hands. "I'm the son of God of the Jun family. The Lord Guardian has ordered that Hellstar will be opened. If the son of God is interested, you can go to the dojo outside Hellstar and wait." The captain lowered his head and said respectfully, "I see. I understand." Jun Xiaoyaro nodded slightly. This scene silenced all the outstanding talents. The Yu Mairen was killed in front of everyone in the city pass, but this captain did not even dare to mention it. Even the Lord Guardian did not have the slightest objection. Instead, he had already ordered Jun Xiaoyaro to go to Hellstar's dojo. From all these aspects, it was enough to see that Jun Xiaoyao's identity and strength were enough to allow him to stand above the rules. His words were dogma. Even geniuses like Long Shuhuang, Huang Jiuyan, and the descendants of the crocodile ancestor could not be as unscrupulous as the son of God of the Jun family, right? In the eyes of the Emperor Road's guardians, the Jun family is more terrifying than the other immortal forces. Some of the outstanding talents whispered to each other. They did not know about the great immortal war that took place in the Huangtian mystic realm. If they knew, they would not find it strange. If the Jun family was really angry and used all their resources, the entire Emperor Road would be destroyed. Therefore, These high and mighty imperial pass guardians did not dare to offend Jun Xiaoyao. Even if Jun Xiaoyao killed someone in public, they would just pretend that they did not see it. Alright, let's go to Hellstar's dojo and give the sea god's third prince this big gift. Jun Xiaoyao put his hands behind his back and stepped on the 9-colored peacock's head. Mu Yuhan and the golden-winged roc followed on his left and right. They rushed to Hellstar's dojo. Let's go and watch a good show. All the outstanding talents in Hulao Pass were on the move. They followed behind Jun Xiaoyao, ready to watch a big show. Jin Guxuan, Qing Hong, Hong Ling, the black-cloaked man, and the others also followed behind with sparkles in their eyes. In an instant, all the outstanding talents in Hulao Pass were led by Jun Xiaoyao, forming a long river and heading to Hellstar's dojo. Chapter 548. The Infernal Star was located in the void a million miles away from Hulao Pass. It was a dark red star that was shrouded in an ominous aura. Outside the Infernal Star, there was a majestic dojo floating in the void. This was where the Emperor Road Sky Prides prepared themselves and settled down. The teleportation portal to the Infernal Star was also here. At this moment, in the starry sky not far from the Infernal Star dojo, the vast and mighty stream of people surged over like a surging heavenly river, traversing the void. The person in the lead stood on a 9-colored peacock with his hands behind his back. His robes fluttered in the wind, making him look like a real immortal. What's going on? So many auras are coming. Oh my god, those are the Sky Prides from Hulao Pass. They're all here. Look, the person in the lead. Is he the rumored son of God of the Jun family? The arrival of such a large group of people had obviously attracted the attention of the Sky Prides in the dojo. The Infernal Star was about to open, and they were also making preparations. Is that the Infernal Star? Jun Xiaoyao looked at the dark red star. The entire star was like a dark red demon's eye, carrying with it a murderous aura. Wisps of blood-red mist wrapped around the star like a waterfall. Because Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was very sensitive, he could also sense that the Infernal Star was shrouded in resentment. Could it really be a dangerous place formed by the resentment of the Sky Prides who died in the Emperor Road? Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. Then, Jun Xiaoyao turned to look at the dojo floating in the starry sky. He could also sense that there were many powerful auras hidden in the dojo. The Sky Prides who dared to go to the Infernal Star to train were all capable. They were not ordinary people. Among these powerful auras, Jun Xiaoyao could also sense 3 extremely powerful auras. If the Sky Pride's auras were a ball of fire, then, these 3 powerful auras were like the sun. Boom! In the Infernal Star dojo, the 3 auras rose at almost the same time. This aura carried a golden Buddhist light, as if it had the power to deliver all living beings from torment. This aura was incomparably sharp as it turned into a terrifying sword chi that seemed as though it could slice through the void for thousands of miles. A strand of aura, vast and boundless like the ocean, surged with magical power, surging out like a great wave breaking a dike. These 3 auras gushed out like volcanoes and pressed down on Jun Xiaoyao. The eyes of the prodigies from Hulao Pass who had followed Xiao Chen over flashed when they sensed the 3 terrifying auras pressing over. Is he trying to intimidate the son of God of the Jun family before even showing his face? Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm as he sensed the overwhelming aura. He snorted coldly and flung his sleeves. His aura erupted, causing the universe to collapse. It was as if a supreme immortal king had awakened, his aura powerful to the point of making one tremble. Boom! The 3 auras that were pressing over were all destroyed by Jun Xiaoyao's flick of his sleeves. Jun Xiaoyao's aura alone was resisting the auras of the 3 little giants, and he was still crushing them. This made the prodigies behind him take a deep breath again. At this moment, a cold laugh came from the dojo. Ha ha, as expected of the person who dared to take away my opportunity. Jun Xiaoyao, as the number 1 person among the younger generation of the Huangtian mystic realm, you are indeed something. As this cold voice came out, in one of the buildings in the dojo, a huge wave suddenly turned into a pillar of water that gushed out, revealing a figure. It was a handsome young man with a head of ocean blue hair that scattered spots of light. He wore the 7 Seas serpent armor and held the Sea King's trident. It was the sea god's third prince from the Sea King's ancient star zone. He first looked at Jun Xiaoyaro and then glanced around, but he didn't see that figure. Where did the mermaid go? The sea god's third prince was a little confused. However, he didn't think too much about it. Right now, his main focus was still on Jun Xiaoyaro. In another dojo building, a golden Buddha's light surged out. Many prodigies who were illuminated by this Buddha's light were slightly dazed, as if they had developed a desire to worship. After a while, they came back to their senses with a deep shock in their eyes. Just a wisp of Buddha's light was enough to shake their minds. How terrifying was Ufuzi! In the sky full of Buddha's light, Ufuzi's figure also appeared. He wore a jade-white Zen robe, and his face was like jade. He had a smile on his face, like a Buddha who smiled while holding a flower. He wasn't the only one who appeared. The followers of the prodigies who had been converted by him also followed. There was also the suppressed nine-headed lion. When it saw Jun Xiaoyao's figure that it hadn't seen in a long time, it cried out with tears in its eyes. "Master, Master, it's me, nine-headed lion. Sob, you're finally here. I've suffered so much." The nine-headed lion cried out with tears in its eyes, as if it had seen its closest relative. "Gosheng, looks like you're quite energetic. I don't have to worry about you," Jun Xiaoyaro said with a smile. The nine-headed lion's tears immediately stopped. The surrounding prodigies looked at the nine-headed lion with strange gazes. "Gosheng, this name, Master, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Can we not talk about my dark history?" The nine-headed lion grinned and gritted its teeth. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. His gaze fell on Ufuzi, and his expression turned serious. This Ufuzi was indeed something. Not only was he powerful, but the power of his primordial spirit was also far superior to that of ordinary prodigies. No wonder he can convert others, Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. "You're Jun Xiaoyaro. Bullying a weak woman is beneath your son of God demeanor." Ufuzi was still smiling with narrowed eyes. "Lord Buddha, you must suppress this bastard." Under Jun Xiaoyao's feet, the nine-colored peacock spoke with a hopeful tone. She hoped that Ufuzi could suppress Jun Xiaoyaro and help her vent her anger. "Noisy." Jun Xiaoyaro stomped his foot. The nine-colored peacock screamed. Ufuzi's smile faded. "Why aren't you smiling anymore? Squinting your eyes all the time. Do you really think people with squinting eyes are monsters?" Jun Xiaoyaro smirked. He was also very tired of such hypocrites. Humph, why bother talking to this person? Anyway, as long as he dares to enter Infernal Star, he won't be able to walk out alive. Suddenly, a cold voice was heard. A swordsman in a green robe rose up on a flying sword. The space around him vibrated, and sword chi gathered. It was the sword son of the void. However, at this moment, he was in his original body. His aura was much stronger than the spiritual body in the Kuan Peng nest. When the void swordsman appeared, Jun Xiaoyaro could clearly feel that he had comprehended the spacebook. When the void swordsman saw Jun Xiaoyaro, he could also feel that the space around Jun Xiaoyaro was vibrating slightly. Could it be? Could it be? The void swordsman's eyes lit up. The spacebook. Jun Xiaoyaro had the other half of the spacebook that he had been dreaming of. The void swordsman took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He had to get the other half of the spacebook, no matter what the cost. Jun Xiaoyaro and the swordmaster of the void both had deep looks in their eyes. They had a tacit understanding and didn't mention the space-breaking book. When the time came, they would see who could get the other half of the spacebook. Chapter 549. The appearance of the three figureheads had undoubtedly pushed the atmosphere to a climax. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder. The sea god's third prince said coldly, "Jun Xiaoyao, although you're not weak, the Emperor Road doesn't belong to you alone. If you hand over the Kuan Peng's divine power and the Kuan Peng's true blood, I can choose not to be your enemy." The sea god's third prince was not stupid. Although the Jun family was unlikely to intervene in the Battle of the Emperor Road personally. However, Jun Xiaoyao's background was there for all to see. Even if he was the sea god's third prince of the ancient star region, he could not help but be wary. Therefore, if he could get the benefits directly, There was no need for him to be Zheng Xiaoyao's enemy. The price he had to pay was too high. Zheng Xiaoyao smiled and nodded slightly. You're right. I, the son of God, do have something to give you. After saying that, Zheng Xiaoyao clapped his hands. Mu Yuhan, who was standing beside him, had a hint of mockery in her beautiful eyes. She threw something wrapped in cloth to the sea god's third prince. Oh, did you already prepare it? The sea god's third prince looked puzzled. He took the thing and opened it. Suddenly, a bloody woman's head appeared in front of him. Her face was twisted with fear. Boom! The sea god's third prince felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His brain was buzzing. Yu Mai Ren. The sea god's third prince's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. Then, he roared into the sky. His ocean blue hair danced wildly in the wind. He was furious. Although Yu Mai Ren was only one of his companions, she was the one he valued and liked the most. Now, all that was left was a cold head. What do you think? Do you like this gift from the Son of God? Zheng Xiaoyao clasped his hands behind his back. The corner of his mouth was still curled up in that gentle and calm smile. Seeing this scene, many sky prides of the Emperor Road were disappointed. Everyone said that Yu Fuzi was a smiling tiger. Now, they felt that the son of God of the Zheng family was just as cunning. I want you dead. The sea god's third prince wielded the Sea King's trident and thrust it at Zheng Xiaoyao. Now, the Zheng family and their background were nothing to be afraid of. Zheng Xiaoyao had already stepped on his head. If he still swallowed this insult, his Dao heart would collapse. The Golden Sea King's trident pierced towards Zheng Xiaoyao with a supreme mystic force. It was a rare supreme weapon. In the Sea King ancient starfield, there was a real monarch weapon, the Sea God's trident. Although the Sea King's trident was a replica of the Sea God's trident, it was still a supreme being weapon. The Sea God's third prince's attack was like a sea of stars that surged out along with the Sea King's trident. Its might was frightening. Upon seeing this, Zheng Xiaoyao did not bring out the myriad qi cauldron. Instead, he stretched out a hand. Many of the Emperor Road's sky prides widened their eyes when they saw this. Don't tell me that the Zheng family's son of God is going to resist a supreme weapon with his physical body. How is this possible? Even if he has the sacred body of the ancients, he can't resist a supreme weapon if he hasn't cultivated it to perfection. Zheng Xiaoyao's move surprised everyone. A cold glint flashed in the sea god's third prince's eyes. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to kill Zheng Xiaoyao, he might really shake up the Emperor Road. As for the consequences, Zheng Xiaoyao had already killed his partner and humiliated him by stepping on his head. What else could he care about in the end? Die. The sea god's third prince unleashed the power of a saint. He held the Sea King's trident in his hand and stabbed it at Zheng Xiaoyao's chest. Zheng Xiaoyao stretched out 2 fingers. Clang. It was as if 2 divine weapons were colliding. Sparks burst out. The sea god's third prince was stunned in the next moment. Zheng Xiaoyao clamped the tip of the trident between his index and middle fingers. The power that was as vast as the ocean was completely stopped by Zheng Xiaoyao's 2 fingers. All the spectating sky prides narrowed their eyes and were shocked. Did he really block it? What kind of monstrous physical body does the Zheng family's son of God have? How many shackles has the sacred body of the ancients of the Zheng family broken? How could his physical body be so strong? All the sky prides were incredulous. Resisting a supreme weapon with one's physical body was something they had never seen before. What a strong physical body. It's not much weaker than my master's, the black-cloaked man in the dark whispered in surprise. You. The sea god's third prince was stunned. He shook his arm and infused it with the power of a saint. He wanted to shake off Zheng Xiaoyao's fingers. However, Zheng Xiaoyao's fingers seemed to contain billions of pounds of power. They locked the Sea King's trident in place. Let go. The sea god's third prince's eyes were filled with shock and anger. It was humiliating and tarnishing his reputation. Zheng Xiaoyao flicked his fingers, and a terrifying recoil surged out. The entire Sea King's trident buzzed and shook, bending it into a curve. Then, the sea god's third prince's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly let go. However, The terrifying power still hit him. Although the sea god's third prince was protected by the seven seas Jiao dragon armor, he still grunted from the shock and tasted blood in his mouth. There was a hint of horror in his eyes. It was worth noting that Jun Xiaoyaro had only flicked his fingers. He actually forced the sea god's third prince to retreat with a flick of his finger. The Void Sword Master and Yu Fu's eyes were also slightly focused. They had never underestimated Jun Xiaoyaro. However, Jun Xiaoyao's performance was still somewhat beyond their expectations. I don't believe it. Again. The sea god's third prince looked ashamed and angry. He was about to attack again to avenge his previous humiliation. At that moment, a cold shout was heard. Everyone, stop. A figure flew over from the Dao Plaza. It was one of the commanders of Hulao Pass. The underworld star is about to open. At that time, you can fight however you want. However, you are at the Dao Plaza now. Do not mess around. This commander's face was stiff and cold, as if he was an impartial judge. However, the sea god's third prince felt somewhat frustrated. When Jun Xiaoyaro attacked, why did this commander not appear to enforce the rules? Now that the sea god's third prince was at a disadvantage and wanted to retaliate, this commander appeared. How can he look down on others like that? We'll talk about it when the time comes, then. After all, this son of God is the most law-abiding. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly, not in a rush. Countless people ridiculed Xiao Chen's words. Who was the one who said that he wanted to dye Sword Gate Pass red with blood? Who was the one who publicly killed people in Hulao Pass? Law-abiding Jun Xiaoyao, I am not lying, some outstanding talents complained in their hearts. Yu Fuozi gave Jun Xiaoyao a deep look. Then, he looked at the peacock that Yu Fuozi sat on and said, Kong Xian, endure for a while longer. Naturally, I will save you. The Void Sword Son's eyes also brimmed with fighting spirit. He needed to obtain Jun Xiaoyao's spacebook. The sea god's third prince hugged the mermaid's head, a bone-chilling coldness in his eyes. The sea god's third prince did not say anything. However, it was clear that the grudge between him and Jun Xiaoyaro was irreconcilable. Just as the atmosphere eased slightly, suddenly, the dark red underworld star in the distance started trembling slightly. A horrifying power of resentment turned into a surging dark red fog, nearly encasing the entire underworld star. It looks like the trial this time is more difficult than before. Will the legendary 19th floor of the underworld star open? There was a serious look in the commander's eyes. Chapter 550. The Infernal Star could be said to be one of the most dangerous training grounds on the Emperor Road. Less than 1 in 10 prodigies could make it out alive. Even so, there were still countless prodigies who went there. That was because there was a chance to find immortal essence on the Infernal Star. It was to the extent where if one's luck was even better, finding an immortal essence mine, then that would be a heaven-defying opportunity, completely striking it rich. Of course, immortal essence mines were very rare and were usually located in the depths of the Infernal Star. If one was not a powerful prodigy, venturing in recklessly was equivalent to courting death. Next, I will tell you about the rules of the Infernal Star. Listen carefully. If you lose your lives, don't blame me, the commander said. There are 18 levels from the surface to the depths of the Infernal Star. Of course, there is an extra level, the 19th level. I'm sure you've heard of it, the commander said. The 19th level of the Infernal Star, could it be the legendary? One of the prodigies seemed to have thought of something. His face turned green with fear. That's right. One of the 7 wonders, the 19th level of the Infernal Star. It's definitely not a place you can enter. However, the 19th level of the Infernal Star is usually not opened. This time, it's hard to say. The commander's words made all the prodigies in the training hall look unprecedentedly serious. One of the 7 wonders, the 19th level of the Infernal Star. Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro realized that the 19th level of the Infernal Star was referring to the 19th level of the Infernal Star. As everyone knew, there were 18 levels in Infernal Star. Then the 19th level? Was there a deeper meaning to it? No one knew what was in it. Because none of those who went in came out alive. The commander continued, Let's not talk about the 19th level. As long as you don't court death and don't go in. As for the other 18 levels, there will be domains on every level. They will suppress 1/10 of your strength. For example, the first 6 levels will suppress the physical body. Every level, they will put shackles on your physical body. 1/10 of your strength. Finally, the 6th level, your physical body will only have 4/10 of its strength left. After the 6th level, it will be a restriction on spiritual power. Same as the physical body, when you enter the 12th level, your spiritual power will also be reduced to 4/10. The last 6 levels will suppress the primordial spirit. What if he could reach the 18th floor? The power of my essence spirit will also be reduced to 40%. In other words, what if you go down to the lowest level? All of you only have 40% of your abilities left. The words caused the geniuses on the dojo to swallow their saliva in silence. In the end, he only has 40% of his strength left. How is he going to fight? That's right. The infernal star is already a dangerous place. If we only have 40% of our strength left, wouldn't we be courting death? Many sky prides felt that this was no different from courting death. Who told you to go down to the 18th level? If you don't have the ability, then stay on the upper level. If you are too cowardly, you can also leave, the commander said coldly. The geniuses clenched their teeth, unwilling to give up. If they cowered in fear, it would greatly affect their Tao hearts. Sigh, I'm afraid only the little tycoons and the son of God of the Jun family are qualified to enter. Some of the geniuses secretly looked at Jun Xiaoyao. They were very curious whether Jun Xiaoyao had the ability to reach the 18th level of the infernal star. Alright, you all should prepare yourselves. We should be able to open it in a few days. After saying that, the commander looked at Jun Xiaoyao, Yu Fuzi, the sword master of the void, and the third prince of the sea god. Then, with a wave of his hand, 4 rays of light landed on each of them. This is. Jun Xiaoyao reached out to take it and found that it was a jade talisman. This jade talisman can resist the domain restraints of the infernal star for 15 minutes. In other words, no matter which level you are on, you will be able to unleash your full strength for 15 minutes, the commander said. What? Is there such a good thing? When the other geniuses heard that, their eyes lit up. This jade talisman was a life-saving talisman at a critical moment. Commander, may I ask where our jade talismans are? One of the geniuses asked with cupped fists. You. The commander glanced at him indifferently. No. How can this be? This is not fair. Many of the geniuses cried out. If you have the talent, strength, or family background of theirs, you can ask me for it. If you don't, then shut your mouth. The commander waved his hand and ignored them. All the geniuses' expressions turned ugly. This was the privileged class. However, they could not refute him. The third prince of the sea god was the crown prince of the Sea King ancient star region. The sword master of the void was a famous honorable void expert. Yu Fuzi was backed by the imperishable ancient sect, the Little Western Paradise. As for Jun Xiaoyao, not to mention, his background was the most prominent among the 4 of them. He was backed by 2 clan of the ancients. Who among the geniuses present had such a background? Moreover, they did not know that Jun Xiaoyao was the master of the imperial court. If they knew, they would be even more shocked. Jun Xiaoyao was the synonym of power. Only he dared to ignore the rules of the Emperor Road. No one dared to punish him. What an evil privileged class. Some of the geniuses gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. This was the reality. Unleashing my full strength for 15 minutes. Not bad. Jun Xiaoyao did not hold back and kept it. Fairness and justice? That was just a trick to fool children. Only a bastard would not take advantage of the situation. The next few days were calm and peaceful. Nothing much happened. Yu Fuzi and the others restrained themselves and did not cause trouble for Jun Xiaoyao. However, it was obvious that an intense battle would break out once they entered the infernal star. Finally, about 7 or 8 days later, the infernal star in the distance shook again. All kinds of resentment, hatred, and other negative emotions boiled and turned into a bloody mist. Even though the dojo was some distance away from the infernal star, the geniuses could still feel the trembling. For a moment, some of the geniuses began to hesitate and wanted to retreat. All right, the teleportation formation will be activated. Once you step in, you will be teleported to every corner of the infernal star. The commander appeared and activated the teleportation formation in the dojo. Jun Xiaoyaro, Mu Yuhan, the golden-winged roc, and the others appeared. Yu Fuzi, the void sword master, and the others also appeared. The third crown prince of the sea god glanced at Jun Xiaoyaro coldly with a sinister look in his eyes. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He completely ignored everyone's gaze. Let's go. Jun Xiaoyaro stepped forward and was the first to enter the teleportation formation. The rest of the Sky Prides also stepped into the teleportation array. Jin Guxuan, Qing Hong, Hong Ling, the cloaked man, and the others also stepped into the formation. Of course, not all of the geniuses had the courage to do so. Some of the geniuses stayed behind. The nine-headed lion and Kong Xian also stayed behind and did not enter the infernal star. Master, you must teach that long-haired bald donkey a lesson, the nine-headed lion roared. Impossible. My Lord Arhat is truly invincible, Kong Xian retorted. Chapter 551. HMPH, bitch. What do you know? The nine-headed lion opened all 9 mouths and shouted at the same time. You. Kong Xian's eyes were cold. At that moment, the commander took out a bronze mirror. Moments later, the scene in every corner of the infernal star was reflected in the mirror. Of course, the only place that wasn't reflected was the legendary 19th level. There was a special and mysterious domain there. No artifacts or methods could see through it. Just in time. You can open your eyes and see how my master tortures the long-haired bald donkey, the nine-headed lion shouted. Maybe you'll see the Jun family's son of God in a sorry state, Kong Xian retorted coldly. At that moment, the figure of an old man in white suddenly appeared in the void. When he saw the old man, the commander's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Lord Guardian." This old man was the guardian of Hulao Pass, Chongming Supreme. What? Even the Lord Guardian is here? Many of the Sky Prides below who didn't enter the infernal star were extremely surprised. Haha, I'm just a little curious and interested, Chongming Supreme said. It seems that the Lord Guardian is here for the Jun family's son of God, the commander thought to himself. If it weren't for Jun Xiaoyaro, Chongming Supreme wouldn't have been interested in coming to the infernal star to watch the battle. Although Yu Fuzi and the other Sky Prides were strong, they couldn't arouse Chongming Supreme's interest. Not only did he enter the bronze celestial palace, but he also came out alive and even controlled the palace. Jun family's son of God, will you create another impossible miracle this time? Chongming Supreme was curious. On a barren and desolate land in the infernal star, an ancient teleportation portal released a burst of light. Then, Jun Xiaoyao's figure flashed out of it. Is this the infernal star? Jun Xiaoyao looked over. The ground was dark red as if it was stained by blood. The mountain range was filled with desolation. It was like the white skeleton of an ancient ferocious beast, desolate and bleak. The ground was littered with white bones. Not only were there human cultivators, but there were also all kinds of creatures and alien races. This is indeed an ominous place, Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. However, he had the sacred body of the ancients, which was a natural counter to all kinds of evil. Such a training ground was quite suitable for him. Jun Xiaoyaro walked forward, and before long, he encountered a group of human devils unique to the infernal star. Before entering the infernal star, the commander had explained it to him. On the infernal star, due to the gathering of resentment, terrifying demonized creatures were formed, such as demons, demonic beasts, and so on. Generally speaking, sky demons, earth demons, and human demons were the main types of demonized creatures. Human demons roamed the surface of infernal star. Old demon, living underground. As for the sky fiend, was it a mass of demonic will without substance? However, this was often even more bizarre and terrifying. The group of human devils in front of him were covered in black scales. Their faces were ferocious, and their cultivation levels ranged from the Tao God realm to the quasi-saint realm. Jun Xiaoyaro could kill such an existence with a flick of his finger. Between his fingers, the sword chi of the immortal slayer sword art burst out. It wiped out all the human devils in front of him. Immortal marrow is usually found underground, and rare immortal marrow veins are more likely to encounter sky demon emperors, earth demon emperors and other existences, Jun Xiaoyaro said to himself. Sky demon emperors? Earth demon emperors? Even among the sky demons and earth demons, boss-like existences, according to the commander, almost all of them had the combat power of a perfected saint. If he was unlucky, it was even possible to encounter a saint king. However, for Jun Xiaoyaro, he was not afraid at all. His only goal was to obtain the immortal marrow and condense immortal chi. Next, Jun Xiaoyaro began to look for the entrance to the underground. On the other side, Jade Fozi, the sword son of the void, the third prince of the sea god, and the others were also pushing forward. The human devils on the surface could not stop them at all. They also decided to think of a way to condense a second immortal chi before dealing with Jun Xiaoyaro. Although the human devils on the surface could not pose the slightest hindrance to the elites of the small giants. However, if the other elites encountered them, they would also be entangled for a while, and might even die. Soon, there were casualties among the elites who entered the infernal star. Some of the elites were directly surrounded by a group of human devils, torn into pieces, and devoured. On the other side of the dojo, the light screen formed by the bronze mirror showed a cruel scene. The rest of the elites who did not enter the infernal star turned pale, and fear lingered in their hearts. It seemed that sometimes, being a little cowardly was not a bad thing. Look, the son of God of the Jun family has found the entrant. One of the elites suddenly exclaimed. Everyone's eyes were focused on that direction. On the infernal star, Jun Xiaoyaro stopped in his tracks. In front of him, there was a bottomless pit that seemed to lead straight to hell. Waves of cold and eerie aura spread out, and a thick smell of blood rose up, making people flinch. Is this the entrance? Below should be the first level of the infernal star, Jun Xiaoyaro said to himself. The infernal star had a total of 18 levels from the surface to the top. As for the legendary 19th level, it should be the core of the infernal star. Perhaps the secret of the infernal star's formation was hidden there. One of the 7 wonders, the 19th level of the infernal star. If I have the chance, should I go in and take a look? Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. Just then, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, host. New check-in location has been refreshed. Please check in at the 19th level of the infernal star. When Jun Xiaoyaro heard that, he was a little embarrassed. System, do you want me to die so badly? These check-in locations were either the burial realm, the bronze divine palace, or the 19th level of the infernal star. They were all places that resembled the netherworld. Did the system think that he was not courting death enough? The system serves the host wholeheartedly. It has no ill intentions, and it has no intention of killing the host, the system replied in a mechanical voice. All right, I believe you, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He did not believe his own words. Of course, this was just a small interlude. Jun Xiaoyaro was indeed interested in the legendary 19th level of the infernal star. Next, Jun Xiaoyaro went down to the first level. After going down to the first level, Jun Xiaoyao's body seemed to have vaguely appeared a shackle. Jun Xiaoyaro was able to sense that his physical powers had been suppressed by 1/10 as soon as the shackle appeared. Because he already knew, Jun Xiaoyaro did not panic at all. With his physical strength, even if it was reduced to 1/100th of his strength, he would still be far more powerful than a prodigy of the same level, let alone 1/10. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to move forward. As he went deeper, he also encountered earth demons. These earth demons were more ferocious than human demons. They were like wild beasts. Of course, their strength was also stronger. The weakest of them was at the perfected Tao God realm. However, with Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation, he naturally swept through them. Along the way, he was also searching for immortal essence. At the same time, in another place underground, A black-robed man casually killed a group of earth demons. On the surface of his body, 2 wisps of immortal chi vaguely appeared. The second wisp of immortal chi was slightly illusory. That was enough to shock everyone. Such a cultivation level was enough to be called a small powerhouse. However, no one knew about him. Chapter 552. How is that possible? That black-robed cloaked man has the strength of a minor giant. At the dojo outside Infernal Star, some sky prides noticed the black-robed cloaked man through the bronze mirror's light screen. Even the chieftain was surprised. A sky pride like him should be as famous as Ufuzi, the Void Sword Master, and the Sea God's third prince. However, he kept a low profile and did not even reveal his appearance. Could he be sent by the outlawed sky prides on the ancient road of the ultimate path? Chongming Prime's eyes were deep. As the Imperial Pass Guardian, he was well aware of this. There were some monstrous sky prides who dominated the ancient road of the ultimate path. They were known as taboos and were destined to reach the end of the ancient road of the ultimate path. These outlawed sky prides, even if they were just followers, had the strength of a minor giant. Some outlawed sky prides also liked to send their followers to various ancient roads to gather information about the various sky prides and prepare for a rainy day. If he was not mistaken, this black-robed cloaked man should be an outlawed sky pride from the ancient road of the ultimate path who sent him to gather information. I wonder which outlawed sky pride sent him, but if he offends the Jun family's son of God. Chongming Prime clicked his tongue and shook his head. Even an outlawed sky pride would not have a good ending if they offended the Jun family's son of God. While everyone in the Infernal Star dojo was in awe, the black-robed cloaked man pondered and said, "The Jun family's son of God hasn't fully matured yet. I heard that he hasn't even condensed his immortal chi. If I make a move now and eliminate him completely, I might be able to solve a problem for my master. However, he has a jade talisman that can temporarily lift the suppression. To be safe, it's not safe for me to do it alone. By the way, it seems like a few people have shown hostility towards the Jun family's son of God," the black-robed cloaked man mumbled to himself. A glint flashed across his eyes, and his figure flashed as he began to head elsewhere. On Jun Xiaoyao's side, he moved very quickly. In less than an hour, he found the entrance to the second level. He continued to go deeper, and another shackle appeared on his body. However, to Jun Xiaoyao, this kind of shackle was dispensable. Soon, after killing a group of earth demons, Jun Xiaoyao found a piece of jade essence that was full of immortal chi in a cave-like place. Was this chalcedony crystal clear? Surrounded by immortal energy, its pure energy was even purer than immortal sources. That's right, but what do I want? It's not just a piece of immortal marrow. Jun Xiaoyao put away the immortal marrow. To him, a piece of immortal essence. It was just a drop in the bucket. What he needed was an immortal marrow vein. However, it was clear that it was impossible for an immortal marrow vein to appear in the first few levels. At the very least, they had to go below the 10th floor. Jun Xiaoyao pushed forward as if he was going to penetrate the Infernal Star. It was sinking at an extremely fast speed. Many people in the Infernal Star dojo were stunned. Jun Xiaoyao's speed? It was simply frightening. None of the demonized creatures were able to withstand even one round of attacks from him. Did you see that, bitch? Open your eyes wide. This is my master's strength, the 9-headed lion said smugly. As for Kong Xian, she was silent. There was stubbornness in her eyes. She believed that Jade Fozi was not weaker than Jun Xiaoyao. That was the truth. Jade Fozi and the others' speed. Although they were not as fast as Jun Xiaoyao, they were definitely not slow. In another place, Jin Guxuan, who was a supreme Dao metal spirit, had already reached the 7th floor. Because he was a Dao metal spirit, the limitations of his physical body did not affect him much. His physical body was already stronger than most of the geniuses. After killing a group of earth demons, he suddenly seemed to have sensed something. He turned around and said coldly, "Who is it?" The black-robed, cloaked figure appeared in the cavern behind him. "Well, you are, I'll get straight to the point. Are you interested in killing the son of God of the Jun family together?" said the black-robed, cloaked figure. Killing the son of God of the Jun family? Jin Guxuan frowned slightly. Although Jun Xiaoyaro had killed his fellow Daoist, the spirit of metal spirit stone, Jin Guxuan's strength was not weak. However, Jun Xiaoyao's powers were there for all to see. He also had a jade talisman that allowed him to ignore the suppression of domains. It would not be easy to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. Seeing Jin Guxuan's hesitation, the black-robed cloaked figure trembled slightly. The aura of a saint of small perfection spread out. At the same time, 2 strands of immortal qi appeared. One of them was the embryonic form of immortal qi. How is this possible? Little tycoon, who are you? Jin Guxuan was also shocked. He was very surprised. You don't need to know. Just say yes or no, the black-robed cloaked figure said lightly. Okay, if you are confident. Jin Guxuan agreed immediately. Very well. Now, let's find the others. The black-robed cloaked figure sneered. Then, he went to find Qinghong, Hongling and the others. They were the followers of Long Shuhuang and Huang Juyan. Strictly speaking, they were also on the opposite side of Jun Xiaoyaro. They were also hesitant at first, but after seeing the black-robed cloaked figure's cultivation, they agreed without hesitation. As for Yu Fuzi and the others, they had already gone deeper to look for immortal marrow veins to condense immortal qi. Besides, they were too proud to join forces with others. About 7 or 8 days later, Jun Xiaoyaro had arrived at the 14th level of the Infernal Star. At this level, his physical body and dharmic power were suppressed to 4/10, and his primordial spirit was also suppressed by 2/10. What rich spirit qi! The immortal marrow vein should be ahead. Jun Xiaoyaro strolled leisurely. In such a dangerous place, it was as if he was taking a stroll in his own backyard. As for the restriction of domains, it did not affect him much at all. In the cavern ahead, immortal light surged like a tide. Jun Xiaoyaro looked over and saw a crystal-clear immortal marrow vein that stretched for a few miles. Although it was not very long, one had to know that even a piece of immortal marrow was extremely precious. And now, there was an immortal marrow vein that was a few miles long. Of course, although the opportunity was precious, there were also many earth demons around the immortal marrow vein. Otherwise, Jun Xiaoyaro also felt a few powerful auras. Demon emperors? Jun Xiaoyaro said. Fresh blood food again. 3 terrifying figures appeared. Each of them had the cultivation of a perfected saint. They were the 3 earth demon emperors. In addition, there were hundreds and thousands of earth demons densely packed together. There are some small problems, but no problem. Jun Xiaoyaro looked indifferent. He took out the myriad qi cauldron and the slaughter began. In the Infernal Star Dojo, when they saw Jun Xiaoyaro facing the 3 earth demon emperors and many earth demons alone, even the 9-headed lion did not speak. His heart was in his throat. One had to know that the current Jun Xiaoyaro was in a state of being suppressed by domains. Although he had a jade talisman, it was an emergency life-saving item. It only lasted for 15 minutes. Just as everyone was nervously watching, they also saw a shocking scene. It's over. The son of God of the Jun family is really in danger now. Chapter 553. At the edge of the immortal essence or vein, looking at the 3 earth demonic sovereigns and the numerous earth demons that were charging towards him, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent. Currently, although his physical strength and magic power were suppressed by 60%, and his primordial spirit power was also suppressed by 20%. However, he had the title of the strongest sage in history. Although these earth demonic sovereigns were powerful, they were clearly not enough to threaten Jun Xiaoyao's life. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the myriad qi cauldron and pressed it forward. Strands of myriad qi cauldron were enough to crush a mountain range. Those earth demons did not even have the time to scream before they were crushed into a bloody pulp. The 3 earth demonic sovereigns roared as they charged towards Jun Xiaoyaro, and a terrifying bloody aura surged towards him. Unlike Jun Xiaoyaro, the strength of these earth demonic sovereigns was not suppressed. Jun Xiaoyao's palm drew a mysterious trajectory, and like a Kuan Peng swinging its tail, it swept towards the earth demonic sovereigns. Ripples were set off in the void, and patches of Dao patterns surged out like huge waves. Bang! The three Earth demonic sovereigns were actually pushed back at the same time, and their bloodthirsty scarlet eyes revealed some trembling. Obviously, they had never encountered a human cultivator who was still so powerful despite being suppressed. They are just some demonic creatures that were corrupted by resentment. The winner takes all. What's there to complain about? Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were cold. Survival of the fittest was the law of the world. Wasn't it normal for the weak to shed blood in the Emperor's road? Hearing Zhang Xiaoyao's words, the three Earth demonic sovereigns seemed to be even more furious, and they continued to charge towards Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao executed the Kuan Peng mystique with one hand and the Thunder Emperor mystique with the other. His left hand transformed into the Kuan Peng mystique, and its mighty power seemed to have cracked the void in front of him. On his right hand, he executed the Thunder Emperor finger. Lightning twined around it, and it was as strong as yang, destroying all evil. Boom! Under Zhang Xiaoyao's attack, the three powerful Earth demonic sovereigns were completely crushed, and they let out miserable cries. Die! Zhang Xiaoyao activated the myriad chi cauldron and slammed it down. A loud smack was heard. The three Earth demon emperors were directly turned into blood foam. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed. He seemed to have noticed something, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. As for Yang Kai himself, he did not reveal any abnormalities and continued to kill the remaining Earth demons. A moment later, all the Earth demons were killed. Zhang Xiaoyao heaved a sigh of relief. Let's refine this immortal quintessence mine. With that, he sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. And it was also at this moment. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew. Wisps of blood mist filled the cave. An invisible wave of telekinesis directly rushed into the mind of Zhang Xiaoyao, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Other than the three Earth Devil Emperors, there was also a heavenly Devil Emperor in this immortal marrow mine. The celestial Devil Emperor was formless and formless. He was an extremely terrifying devil that could kill people without them noticing. Even if he was a heaven's pride at the level of a small magnet. If one was not careful and was taken advantage of, it was possible that one's Tao heart would collapse, and they would directly fall into madness. And at this moment, in Zhang Xiaoyao's mind, endless resentment erupted, as if there were countless vengeful spirits of fallen prodigies. They were howling in his ears. In Zhang Xiaoyao's primordial spirit of three lives. At this moment, there was a movement. The primordial spirit sitting cross-legged on the Tao flower suddenly opened his eyes with cold contempt. What can mere resentment do to me? With that, endless golden light soared into the sky. A vast ancient Buddha appeared. It was the Mahavairokkana cultivated by the Tathagata Sutra. The Mahavairokkana appeared. The celestial devil emperor's vengeful spirit screamed. Like spring snow, it began to melt rapidly. Although the power of Zhang Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was suppressed by 20%. But his primordial spirit was the primordial spirit of three lives. And it had absorbed the will of the immortal ancient world before. Its soul power was vast and boundless, far surpassing that of saints of the same level. However, looking at it from the outside, Zhang Xiaoyao, on the other hand, was frowning as if he was struggling with something. This is a good chance. At this moment, an aura burst out from the darkness in the distance. 4 silhouettes shot out like arrows, casting their spells at Zhang Xiaoyao, who had his eyes closed. They were the black-robed man, Jin Guxuan, Hong Ling, and Qing Hong. They had been searching all the way here under the guidance of the black-robed man. Hong Ling, Qing Hong, and the others hesitated when they saw Zhang Xiaoyao still crushing the three Earth Devil Emperors despite being suppressed. They did not dare to make a move. However, to their surprise, Zhang Xiaoyao, who was about to refine the immortal marrow vein, was attacked by the celestial devil emperors. This was a great opportunity to eliminate Zhang Xiaoyao. If they did not make a move, they would be wasting this God-given opportunity. Therefore, they did not hesitate to attack with their strongest moves. They wanted to join forces and kill Zhang Xiaoyao once and for all. However, just as the four of them were about to land their attacks on Zhang Xiaoyao, Zhang Xiaoyao's expression suddenly became calm. His eyelids slowly opened. His eyes were as cold as the stars in the sky. Oh no, it's a trap. Jin Guxuan could not help but yell. Hong Ling and Qing Hong were also stunned. They did not expect this to happen at all. Those were the celestial devil emperors. Even if they were small giants, if their primordial spirits were invaded, they would at least be in a daze and struggle in the chaos. However, Jun Xiaoyao did not seem to be affected at all. How is this possible? The sacred body of the ancients is unparalleled, but the primordial spirit can't be this strong. The black-robed man was also very surprised. Although the rats hiding in the dark are not a threat, they are still annoying. It's better to kill them. Jun Xiaoyao threw a punch. The shadow of a Kuan Peng appeared, sometimes turning into a Kuan, sometimes into a Peng. It had the power to strike the 9 heavens and suppress the 9 underworld. This was a manifestation of the Kuan Peng's grand magic, called the Kuan Peng Infinite Divine Punch. Ah, no. Master Huang Jiuyan will not let you go. Qing Hong and Hong Ling screamed. Obviously, they could not withstand this move. Long Shu Huang and Huang Jiuyan, when I have time, I will definitely go ahead and take their lives. Jun Xiaoyao's tone was indifferent. With one punch, not to mention Qing Hong and Hong Ling. Even Jin Guxuan, a cultivator who'd turned Dao metal into a spirit, was blasted to pieces by the punch. However, Jun Xiaoyao was slightly surprised to see that. The black-robed man was not killed instantly. An illusory bell appeared on the surface of his body, barely resisting Jun Xiaoyao's attack. However, it was just barely. The black robe on the surface of his body was torn by the impact, revealing his bronze body. This is... Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were filled with surprise. He was somewhat familiar with this illusory bell. Previously in the eternal burial ground, the incomplete ancient tyrant body of the heavens Chu Tianba had also used this move. It was one of the 9 great godly forms of the tyrant body, the great bell Taoist form. Tyrant body of the heavens. No, it's not the tyrant body of the heavens. Jun Xiaoyao frowned slightly. He had expected this before, but he did not expect to meet someone related to the tyrant body of the heavens. Who are you? Jun Xiaoyao's tone was indifferent. Hair. Fortunately, Master gave me a drop of blood. Sacred body of the ancients. What a sacred body of the ancients. The man's qi and blood were majestic, and his eyes were filled with fear. He turned around and wanted to escape. Master. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent as he reached out with his palm. There was a bang. The man could not withstand Jun Xiaoyao's attack at all. He spat out another mouthful of blood, and his internal organs were almost shattered. Your master is the tyrant body of the heavens? Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. Cough. Just you wait, son of God of the Jun family. My master is destined to dominate this era. When you step on the ancient ultimate road and meet my master, it will be the time of your death. The man shouted crazily, and his eyes were filled with fanatical worship. It was worship for his master. Don't worry. You will see your master in the underworld soon. Jun Xiaoyao slammed his palm down. Even though the man tried his best to resist and even brought out his divine qi, he was still killed by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. A drop of blood can make this person manifest some of the tyrant body of the heavens abilities. Could it be that the king of the tyrant body that Chu Tianba mentioned, the tyrant body, has appeared? Jun Xiaoyao wondered. However, he immediately shook his head. No matter what the tyrant body was, it was nothing to him. He had already forged an invincible mind, and he was not afraid of any challenge. If the tyrant body really wants to die, I don't mind putting an end to the feud between the sacred body and the tyrant body. Jun Xiaoyao's tone was indifferent. That tyrant body was the king of the tyrant body. However, Jun Xiaoyao also had a complete sacred body of the ancients that had broken 10 shackles. It could be said that the two of them were the representatives of the most perfect physiques. This was the ultimate battle between the peak of the sacred body and the peak of the tyrant body. Chapter 554. Jun Xiaoyao didn't think too much about the Overlord. After all, when the time came for him to step onto the ancient road of ultimate, he would naturally run into him. If the Overlord didn't know what was good for him, Jun Xiaoyao didn't mind completely cutting off the Overlord's bloodline. Let's refine this immortal marrow vein first, Jun Xiaoyaro murmured. He activated the divine elephant overpowering force and brought out the heaven and earth furnace. At the same time, he activated the god-devouring demonic art. The two types of devouring and refining abilities erupted, and the immortal marrow vein began to be absorbed by Jun Xiaoyaro at a crazy rate. An embryonic form of immortal qi appeared on the surface of his body. This half-illusory embryonic form of immortal qi became more and more solid as the immortal marrow vein was absorbed. At this moment, everyone who saw this scene in the training hall was dumbfounded. They all thought that Jun Xiaoyaro was in mortal danger, and that he might be in great danger. Who would have thought that Jun Xiaoyaro would have been able to neutralize such a dangerous situation with ease? As expected of the son of God of the Jun family. I thought that he would activate the Jade Seal. The commander also sighed. Haha, stinky woman, did you see that? Seeing this, the nine-headed lion wagged his tail and beamed with joy. Kong Xian's face was gloomy, and she didn't say anything. Then, she suddenly saw the scene on the light screen, and her eyes suddenly burst with joy. Master Arhat also found an immortal marrow vein. He is about to condense his second strand of immortal qi. Kong Xian shouted in surprise. Everyone had been paying attention to Jun Xiaoyaro, and now they saw that Jade Arhat, the sword master of the void, the third prince of the sea god, and the others had each found an immortal marrow vein and were condensing their second strand of immortal qi. Master Arhat is about to condense his second strand of immortal qi, while Jun Xiaoyaro is only condensing his first strand of immortal qi. Who is stronger and who is weaker? Kong Xian's expression returned to normal, and she sneered at the nine-headed lion. The nine-headed lion grinned, and there was a trace of embarrassment on its face. Then, it said unyieldingly, "So what? Immortal energy doesn't represent everything. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Let's wait and see." Kong Xian's face was full of anticipation. She wanted to see Yu Fuzi suppress Jun Xiaoyaro. The trials continued throughout the Infernal Star. In such a short period of time, more than half of the geniuses who had entered the Infernal Star had died. Most of the remaining Sky Prides were also active above the 10th level. They didn't dare to go below the 10th level. Only Jun Xiaoyaro and the others. Only then would he be able to go in without any scruples. In another immortal quintessence vein, Jade Fozi sat cross-legged. There was a Buddhist light shining around him. His temperament was transcendent, like a handsome Buddha carved from jade. Suddenly, at a certain moment, Jade Fozi sensed something. He said indifferently, "Come out." Ahead, a valiant figure appeared. Loose blonde hair. It was the golden-winged roc. Golden-winged roc. I have no grudge against you. See who it was. Jade Fozi said indifferently. I don't care what method you used to bewitch Kong Xian. But you don't deserve to be her master. The golden-winged roc's eyes flashed coldly. Jade Fozi chuckled and shook his head. Everyone is bewitched by love. Even the heir of the golden-winged roc is no exception. Since that's the case, let me enlighten you. It's not that simple. The golden-winged roc attacked without hesitation. He spread his wings. 100,000 sword feathers shot out. At the same time, the shadow of a Kuan Peng seemed to appear behind him. It wasn't a Kuan Peng's grand divine power, but a mysterious transformation after the golden-winged roc refined the Kuan Peng true blood. Oh, no wonder you're so confident. So it's Jun Xiaoyaro who gave you the Kuan Peng true blood. Jade Fozi was slightly surprised to see this, but his expression remained calm. He also made a move and blasted out a hand. His palm was like gold, shining with Buddhist light. A swastika appeared, carrying with it a vast aura. The golden-winged roc whistled, and 100,000 sword feathers gathered, forming a golden divine sword that slashed horizontally. The two of them collided with each other. Outside, Kong Xian had a complicated look on her face as she watched the scene on the screen. She knew that the golden-winged roc had attacked Jade Fozi because of her. But then, she shook her head and muttered to herself, Golden-winged roc, you're too naive. Not everyone can challenge the Fozi. In her heart, Jade Fozi was the most powerful and paramount existence. The golden-winged little roc king against Jade Fozi was like an egg striking a rock. But that was the truth. After only a few dozen rounds, the golden-winged roc was on the verge of collapsing. He roared at the sky, his golden hair dancing in the wind, and an embryonic form of immortal chi appeared on the surface of his body. Jade Fozi shook his head, and a jade-green immortal chi appeared on the surface of his body as well. It was the body immortal chi formed by his body Buddha heart. Jade Fozi pressed down with the body immortal chi, and said calmly, "The golden-winged roc has a deep relationship with the Buddha. You can be my protector in the future." Boom! The blow landed, and the golden-winged roc was sent flying, spitting out blood. Jade Fozi murmured, and used the expiation technique. The majestic Buddhist voice resounded in all directions. The golden-winged roc held his head and screamed. But after a while, he stopped struggling. His face was expressionless, and there was only numbness in his eyes. "Master." The golden-winged roc's voice was emotionless. "Heh. You will be my protector outside." Jade Fozi smiled. "Yes." The golden-winged roc nodded slightly. Outside the dojo, outside the infernal star, many sky prides felt their scalps go numb. The expiation technique of the Little Western Paradise was too strange. "Do you think the son of God of the Jun family will be expiated as well?" "I'm not sure, but the son of God of the Jun family's primordial spirit cultivation is not weak either." Many people were speculating. Time passed by slowly. Jade Fozi, the sword master of the void, and the third prince of the sea god each used an immortal marrow vein to condense a second immortal chi. Their strength had skyrocketed, and they had stepped into the ranks of the top sky prides of the Emperor Road. "Let's go deeper. I want to see what the 18th level looks like." The three little tycoons all chose to go deeper into the forest. Not only did their strength skyrocket, but they also had jade talismans that made them immune to the domain suppression for 15 minutes, so they were not worried about encountering any danger. At about the same time, Jun Xiaoyaro, who was sitting cross-legged on the immortal marrow vein, suddenly trembled. The entire immortal marrow vein had been absorbed by him. The half-illusory immortal chi prototype on the surface of his body had finally completely condensed into a real immortal chi of the void. "It's finally done." The fourth immortal chi. Jun Xiaoyaro let out a deep breath. Everyone thought that this was the first immortal chi he had condensed. Little did they know that this was the fourth immortal chi Jun Xiaoyaro had condensed. "Let's continue." Jun Xiaoyaro went on his way again. Not only did he want to go to the 19th level of the Infernal Star, but he also wanted to take care of the three little figureheads. Chapter 555. The few sky prides who were still on Infernal Star were all quite capable. However, those prodigies only dared to train above the 10th level. They didn't dare to go deeper. Meanwhile, on the 18th level of Hellstar. The 18th level of Hellstar really did look like hell. Infernal flames burned everywhere, as if they'd arrived at the Earth's core. The domain suppression here had reached its limit. Any geniuses who landed on this level would be suppressed to only 40% of their strength. A golden Buddha palm struck out, killing a group of earth demons in front of it. It was Jade Fozi. He'd never killed anyone, but those earth demons weren't humans, strictly speaking. The golden-winged roc followed beside Jade Fozi with a numb expression. "I sensed an immortal marrow vein. No, it's even rarer than the average one. Could it be?" Jade Fozi's eyes twinkled. He recalled a rumor that there might be an immortal marrow king in human form on the 18th level of Hellstar. It was just like the Gungjin rock spirit and Jin Guxuan, who'd been transformed from divine metal and Dao metal. Strictly speaking, immortal marrow was also a rare and precious treasure, and it was possible for it to take human form. If they could really find an immortal marrow king, it would be invaluable whether they refined it, branded it, or nurtured it. Even someone as calm as Jade Fozi couldn't help but feel his breathing quicken. He and the enlightened golden-winged roc continued deeper. About 2 hours later, the spiritual chi up ahead suddenly thickened. Jade Fozi gathered his power in his eyes and looked ahead. There was an immortal marrow vein ahead. However, this immortal marrow vein was a few times bigger than the immortal marrow vein he had seen before. The immortal chi was dense, and wisps of it were scattered in the air. In the depths of the vein was a translucent jade cocoon. One could vaguely make out the petite figure of Linglong, curled up like a baby in its mother's womb. The entire vein's power was converging on the jade cocoon, as if it was gathering all of its power. It was giving birth to a shocking existence. That's the immortal Marrow King. Jade Physique could no longer hide the fire in his eyes. Even with his state of mind as a Diana cultivator, at this moment, great waves were stirring. That was a rare king of immortal Marrow, priceless. Perhaps it was because of the birth of the immortal Marrow King, but there were no traces of earth demons around. Jade Physique took a few steps forward. Another direction. Was there the sound of waves? A person wearing the Seven Seas Flood Dragon armor? The figure holding the Sea King's trident appeared. It was the Sea God's third prince. Did he also cultivate 2 strands of immortal chi? At this moment, his aura was extremely strong. When he saw the king of immortal Marrow, his eyes shone brightly. At the same time, in another cave nearby, the power of space vibrated, and a figure broke through the air. It was the swordsman of the void. The 3 little giants all sensed the fluctuations of the king of immortal Marrow and gathered here. Hee. It seems that we have locked onto the same target. The Void Sword Master looked around and said lightly, "Then is Jun Xiaoyaro still coming? Don't tell me he doesn't even have the strength to enter the 18th level." The Sea God's third prince's eyes were cold. What else was he planning? To settle things with Jun Xiaoyaro on the Infernal Star. What if he shows up? "We'll just suppress him," Jade Physique said calmly. "You didn't expect this. You actually converted the golden-winged rock." Looking at the expressionless golden-winged rock beside Jade Physique, the Void Sword Master and the Sea God's third prince's eyes were filled with a hint of fear. Jade Physique's conversion technique? It was indeed strange and frightening. Hee, I want the king of immortal Marrow. I wonder if the 2 of you can compromise. I'll compensate you. The Void Sword Master shook his head. Don't say such polite words. Let's see who's stronger. The king of immortal Marrow was so precious that even supremes would be tempted by it, let alone these geniuses who wanted to condense immortal chi. If they could get the king of immortal Marrow, condensing a few more strands of immortal chi wouldn't be impossible. Enough talk. Let's fight. The Sea God's third prince shook the Sea King's trident in his hand. The 3 of them had nothing else to say. They attacked at the same time. Magic power vibrated, and the void trembled. Even if they were suppressed to only 40% of their strength, the power that the 3 of them unleashed was still shocking. The battle began. None of the 3 sides gave way. Terrifying magic power ripples spread out and swept in all directions. The battle was extremely fierce. The aftershocks shook the translucent jade cocoon, causing cracks to appear. Then, all the spiritual energy in the entire immortal pith vein gathered towards the translucent jade cocoon. Jade Physique and the other 2 watched from the corners of their eyes. Cracks spread out on the surface of the translucent jade cocoon. Soon after, the petite and exquisite figure inside was revealed before their eyes. She looked to be about 7 or 8 years old. Her body was covered in a dress woven from energy. She had a head of long silver hair. Her face was tender and cute, and her eyelashes were long and curly. Her features were delicate and pretty. Perhaps it was because she was immortal Marrow, but her skin was as smooth as snow, and she exuded a fragrance and spirit chi. She was like a moving ginseng fruit. The king of immortal Marrow in human form. Jade Physique and the other 2's eyes lit up when they saw the little girl. They could sense that if they refined this girl, they would definitely be able to condense new immortal chi. Golden-winged rock, capture her. Jade Physique's eyes flashed. The golden-winged rock flapped its wings and flew toward the little girl. The little girl had just been born. Clearly, she didn't have a mature mind like Jin Guxuan and the Gungjin rock spirit. However, she could also instinctively sense a sense of danger. Don't eat me, the little girl cried weakly. Whoosh! A sword ray appeared and blocked the golden-winged rock's path. That king of immortal Marrow is mine. The one who attacked was the sword master of the void. There was no way he was going to let Jade Physique take the king of immortal Marrow. The place fell into chaos once again. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the little lowly formed from the immortal marrow moved her slender legs and ran into the distance. Just as Jade Fozzie and the others were about to stop her, with a thud, the little lowly seemed to have bumped into a wall. Ah! She fell to the ground and covered her forehead with her hand. She didn't understand why there was something blocking her path. That's... Jade Fozzie and the others were startled. They were able to clearly sense that there was a powerful sealing power that had sealed off their surroundings. What's going on? There wasn't any formation around when we came in. While the three of them were puzzled, faint footsteps came from the cave in the distance. A peerless figure in white slowly walked over and stood in front of the little girl. The little lowly raised her head and saw a face that was as handsome as a celestial being's. The perfect aura he was emitting made the little girl want to get closer to him. After all, she was close to perfection in the form of immortal marrow. Therefore, it was natural for her to want to get closer to someone who was even more perfect. Oh! The king of immortal marrow in human form? How lucky! The person who appeared was naturally Jun Xiaoyao. Chapter 556. Jun Xiaoyao sized up the little girl in front of him. Her dense spiritual qi was enough to make anyone who smelled it feel like they were about to ascend to the heavens. You want to eat me too? I don't taste good. I don't have any meat. The little girl's petite body trembled slightly. Stay here and don't move. Jun Xiaoyao glanced at her indifferently, then looked away. He had just condensed his fourth strand of immortal qi, so he wasn't in a hurry to refine the king of immortal marrow. Besides, he still had some problems to deal with. Hearing this, the little girl hugged her knees and sat on the ground. She couldn't escape from the second seal of the immortal prohibition seal. Jun Xiaoyao. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao arrive, the third prince of the sea god's eyes shot out cold murderous intent. The sword son of the void's eyes burned with a burning desire to fight. Jun Xiaoyao had something on him that he needed. As for Yu Fuozi, he was smiling, but he was also gathering his magical power. Clearly, he also wanted to fight. In an instant, the three little giants all targeted Jun Xiaoyao. This scene was also witnessed by the geniuses at the dojo. Heavens, that's the king of immortal marrow in human form. It's enough to make the top geniuses bleed. The son of God of the Jun family is going against the three little giants. This is going to be interesting. But I don't think the three little giants will team up against the son of God of the Jun family. That would be too degrading. Many people were discussing. Kong Xian's eyes were filled with anticipation. She was looking forward to Jade Fozzie suppressing Jun Xiaoyao and avenging her. The more hopeful you are now, the more disappointed you will be when the time comes. The 9 heads of the 9-headed lion snorted in unison. It also worshipped Jun Xiaoyao unconditionally. On the 18th level of the infernal star, the third prince of the sea god's trident was the first to move. He shook the sea king's trident in his hand, and dharmic powers swept out like a vast ocean toward Jun Xiaoyao. Now that there was no one to stop him, he could go all out. Jade Fozzie and the sword son of the void didn't attack immediately. At their level, besieging someone was a little unreasonable. Seeing the sea god's third prince's attack coming, Jun Xiaoyao still reached out with his bare hands, wanting to grab the Sea King's trident. You still want to use this move? Seeing Jun Xiaoyao looking down on him, the sea god's third prince's hair fluttered wildly, and his saint stage strength erupted. Although he was suppressed by the domain, his aura was still very shocking. All sorts of water-type Dao patterns intertwined, seemingly turning this place into a sea. Clang! Jun Xiaoyao caught the Sea King's trident with his bare hands as intense sparks flew out. The sea god has awakened. The sea god's third prince let out a long howl. The sea god's bloodline in his body was boiling, and the space around him was shaking. The Sea King's trident seemed to have sensed something as well, and mysterious golden patterns appeared on its surface. Divine power burst forth and shattered Jun Xiaoyao's palm. Oh! The sea god's bloodline. Jun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows slightly, but his expression was still indifferent. The sea god was also a mythical emperor. Just like the one-armed Nether King, Gulan True Lord, and other mythical emperors, he was once a god worshipped by all living creatures in the ocean. However, The sea god's bloodline in the sea god's third prince was similar to the Nether King's bloodline in the Nether King's body. Both were very thin, and could not be considered a true bloodline inheritance. Even so, it was enough for the sea god's third prince to make a name for himself in Emperor Road. Unfortunately, he encountered Jun Xiaoyao. Even a god has to bow before me. What's more, you're just a mixed blood descendant, Jun Xiaoyao said. Reaching out with his palm, drawing a mysterious arc in the air. It was like a Kuan Peng leaping into the sea. Kuan Peng superpower. The sea god's third prince gritted his teeth. This was the superpower he had been dreaming of. Bang! A single collision. Jun Xiaoyao used 100,000 divine elephant granules. He activated the Kuan Peng superpower. Both the divine elephant and Kuan Peng were synonymous with divine power. The power was enough to sink the ground. Splat! The sea god's third prince felt an unparalleled divine power reverberating through the Sea King's trident, causing him to spit out blood. Even the seven seas serpent armor could not protect him. Sea god's strike. While the sea god's third prince was injured, the Sea King's trident stabbed toward Jun Xiaoyao's chest. He wanted to trade injury for injury. However, Jun Xiaoyao's body surface, dragon chi surging, a silver dragon armor with a rainbow luster appeared on the surface of his body. It was the rainbow sacred dragon armor. Its defensive power surpassed the sea god's third prince's seven seas serpent armor. Clang! The Sea King's trident could not break through the rainbow sacred dragon armor's defense. Die! Jun Xiaoyao did not want to waste any more time. He threw out a punch, intending to kill the sea god's third prince. Seeing this, the sea god's third prince roared, "Jun Xiaoyao, don't be so smug. You don't have what I have." With that, a streak of sky-blue immortal chi suddenly appeared on the surface of his body. In an instant, the rules of water flowed, and the void was filled with immortal light and Tao patterns. This was a streak of immortal chi that the sea god's third prince had condensed with his own sea god bloodline. Is that all? Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm. A streak of golden immortal chi mixed with the color of blood also appeared on the surface of his body. It was a streak of immortal chi. The sea god's third prince was not surprised to see this streak of immortal chi. He sneered, as expected, "It seems that you've also found an immortal marrow vein. However, this is not all I have." With that, a second streak of immortal chi appeared on the surface of the sea god's third prince's body. Just like Yu Fuzi and the Sword Master of the Void, he had already condensed two streaks of immortal chi. He was stronger than the average big shot. Jun Xiaoyao, can you still laugh? The sea god's third prince had a carefree look on his face. Even if you're the high and mighty son of God of the Jun family, you'll fall behind others if you miss the best opportunity. Two streaks of immortal chi. This is what you're relying on. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was not as shocked as the sea god's third prince had expected. A second streak of immortal chi also appeared on the surface of his body. It was as thick as the heavens and earth. It was the immortal chi condensed from the origin chi of all things. This. The sea god's third prince was stunned. Yu Fuzi and the Sword Master of the Void, who were watching from the side, were also stunned. They felt that things had gone beyond their expectations. Is that not enough? I have more, said Jun Xiaoyao. Another streak of immortal chi with the will of reincarnation appeared on the surface of his body. It was the immortal chi of reincarnation that he'd condensed after comprehending the power of reincarnation. You, none of them saw the look of shock on Jun Xiaoyao's face. As a result, they were all shocked by what they saw. No, they were shocked. They were a little frightened. Not enough. It's okay. I have more. Another streak of immortal chi appeared on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body. The fourth streak of immortal chi appeared in the air. Crack! The sea god's third prince's hand trembled. The Sea King's trident fell to the ground. The Sword Master of the Void could no longer remain calm. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. As for Yu Fuzi, the smile on his face completely disappeared for the first time. It was replaced by a stiff expression of disbelief and astonishment. 4 streaks of immortal chi? The three little authorities were completely dumbfounded. Didn't they say that Jun Xiaoyaro had not condensed a single streak of immortal qi before? Where did the immortal qi come from? And there were 4 streaks of it at once. It was terrifying. Meanwhile, on the Void Dojo outside Infernal Star, all the geniuses who were watching the show fell silent. Even Chong Ming Supreme and the commander who were watching the show had interesting looks on their faces. Kong Xian's expression changed like never before. It was as if she had seen the most shocking and unbelievable scene. Chapter 557. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? 4 strands of immortal qi. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right, 4 strands of immortal qi. In the Void Dojo outside the Infernal Star, everyone was dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold on the screen. 4 strands of immortal qi. That had never happened on the Emperor Road before. Perhaps an outlawed Sky Pride with 4 strands of immortal qi would appear at the end of the Emperor Road. However, the problem was that the Emperor Road had only been opened for a little over 2 years. Even Yi Guchen, who was ranked first on the Baron Sky Saint leaderboard, had yet to condense 4 strands of immortal qi. What the F***ck, isn't Master a little too powerful? The 9-headed lion jumped up in shock. Jun Xiaoyao's move had shocked everyone. How can this be? If he has 4 strands of immortal qi, why didn't he show them before? Kong Xian's soul seemed to have been sucked out of her body as the light in her beautiful eyes disappeared. TSK, maybe Master doesn't want to show them. After all, not everyone is qualified to make Master release 4 strands of immortal qi. The 9-headed lion was getting more and more smug. As expected of the son of God of the Jun family. He's really good at hiding his moves. Chong Ming Prime was also very impressed. He had only come to watch the show, but now, he was also shocked. He recalled the terrifying battle record of Jun Xiaoyaro killing 100 saints with 1 cauldron during the Battle of the Immortals in the Huangtian mystic realm. Chong Ming Prime suddenly felt that Yu Fuzi and the others were in for a tragedy. Meanwhile, on the 18th level of the Infernal Star, looking at Jun Xiaoyaro with 4 strands of immortal qi around his body, the sea god's 3rd prince trembled violently. You. How is this possible? The sea god's 3rd prince could not believe it. Jun Xiaoyaro had only been on the Emperor Road for a short while. How could he have condensed 4 strands of immortal qi? Could it be that he had already condensed more than 1 strand of immortal qi before he stepped onto the Emperor Road? The sea god's 3rd prince was even more shocked at this thought. He could not believe it. He was not the only one. Yu Fuzi and the Swordmaster of the Void were also shocked. His heart was filled with shock. As for the little loli who was standing at the side, she stared at the immortal qi condensed from the myriad qi on Jun Xiaoyao's body and saliva flowed down from the corner of her mouth. Want. The little loli mumbled, a look of longing appearing in her sparkling eyes. This son of God has already said that with your shallow thinking, trying to figure out the abilities of this son of God is truly laughable. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. He was simple. He struck out with his palm. 4 streaks of celestial qi were imbued into his palm, and it was as if the entire sky was crashing down, bringing with it the power of 4 different attributes. The pinnacle of physical body, myriad qi, the power of reincarnation, void energy. What if this palm came down? Immortal radiance surged, and the ground within 100,000 feet would be directly sunk. The sea god's 3rd prince also pushed his strength to the limit. He held the Sea King's trident in his hand. 2 strands of immortal qi wrapped around it, and it pierced through the void. Boom! An earth-shattering collision? It was as if the entire 18th level of Hellstar was trembling. The sea god's 3rd prince only felt a vast and unparalleled power. It rushed toward him along the Sea King's trident. His halberd-wielding arm directly exploded. His body flew backward. The 7 seas serpent dragon armor on his body cracked from the impact. The sea god's 3rd prince was severely injured in 1 blow. This was a genius at the level of a minor tycoon. But now, he was lying on the ground like a dead dog, spitting blood non-stop. Attack! Jade Fozi and the Sword Master of the Void attacked at the same time. They weren't pedantic people who believed in fair and just duels. Now that they saw Jun Xiaoyao release 4 streaks of immortal qi, they didn't care about their status and dignity anymore. They attacked together. 2 streaks of immortal qi appeared on the surface of Jade Fozi and the Swordmaster of the Void. One of them formed a Buddhist seal, while the other shot out sword radiance toward Jun Xiaoyao. Good timing. This is what makes it interesting. Jun Xiaoyao didn't panic when he saw this, and calmly responded. In the dojo, Kong Xian was dumbfounded when she saw this. How is this possible? Why would Lord Fozi team up with others? In Kong Xian's mind, Jade Fozi had always been an invincible existence with absolute confidence. But now, he didn't hesitate to team up with others to fight Jun Xiaoyao. This made Kong Xian's belief in herself crumble bit by bit. On the 18th level of Hellstar, Jun Xiaoyao used the Kuanpeng's Grand Technique with one hand and the Thunder Emperor's Grand Technique with the other. At the same time, he was supported by 4 streaks of immortal qi. Like an invincible god of war, he swept in all directions. Lightning interwove into a destructive net that enveloped the two. At the same time, the shadow of a Kuanpeng appeared. With a flick of its tail, the void exploded. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions resounded throughout the 18th level of Infernal Star. Jun Xiaoyao was like a deity that had been banished to the mortal world, wielding the supreme power of the universe. Every move he made caused the world to crumble. Cough. Jade Fozi and the Sword Master of the Void both retreated at the same time. Their eyes were filled with unprecedented shock. They attacked at the same time, but instead of suppressing Jun Xiaoyao, they were suppressed. Ananda Buddha Seal. Jade Fozi's chest surged with emerald light. It was his body Buddha heart that was emitting divine light. There seemed to be the sound of chanting from the void. It was vast and solemn. Jade Fozi attacked with a seal. It was as if an ancient Buddha had attacked to suppress a calamity. On the other side, the Sword Master of the Void also activated his virtual body. The surrounding space rippled like waves, and all kinds of space laws appeared. Mimi reading, he held his sword with both hands, which contained endless void power. It was his ultimate move, Space Wave Sword. But that wasn't all. The sea god's third prince, who had fallen to the ground, stood up again. He had the sea god's bloodline, so his physical body's recovery ability wasn't weak. His broken right arm was recovering at a visible speed. The sea god's third prince was unwilling to give up, so he continued to attack. They knew that if it wasn't Jun Xiaoyao who died today, then it would be them. The 3 little giants attacked at the same time. Their power was unimaginable. It was as if they wanted to destroy this space. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent. His body shook, and the immortal Deluo immortal body appeared. His physical strength broke through the limit again. Every inch of his skin seemed to be dyed with golden light. His bones were like jade, branded with golden runes. 100,000 divine elephant granules also exploded. Then he clenched his fist and used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Kuanpeng Infinite Divine Fist, Lightning Emperor Finger, Divine Elephant Sky-Shattering Tackle, 7 Dragons Destroy the World, Primitive Emperor Dao Sword, Immortal Slayer Sword Chant. The 6 paths of reincarnation fist controlled these 6 terrifying superpowers and attacked at the same time. The shockwaves were unparalleled. It seemed to be able to sink a continent. It had the power to destroy the world. Boom. An ear-piercing sound was heard. Under this attack, the 3 little tycoons were sent flying. Their arms exploded, and cracks spread across their bodies, shattering into pieces like porcelain. Jun Xiaoyao's punch showed his invincible power. It crushed the 3 little giants like a young immortal king. His divine power was unparalleled. Chapter 558. The entire 18th level of the Infernal Star rumbled. The 3 powerhouses were sent flying like rags. Their bodies cracked and blood spurted out. How can he be so strong? The sea god's third prince and the void swordmaster roared. Jade Fozi was the calmest of the 3, but he no longer had his signature smile. He was incomparably solemn. Meanwhile, on the other side of the training hall, Jun Xiaoyao's performance caused everyone to fall silent. They knew Jun Xiaoyao was strong, but they didn't expect him to be so freakishly strong. The three powerhouses were no match for Jun Xiaoyao even though they worked together. They were all heavily injured. On the other hand, Jun Xiaoyao's white robes didn't even have a single wrinkle. The difference was shocking. Kong Xian's worldview began to crumble. Jun Xiaoyao's strength had refreshed her understanding of the strong. No, Jade Fuozi and the others are about to crush their jade seals. A prodigy pointed at the light screen and exclaimed. Everyone's eyes were fixed on them. They knew Jade Fuozi and the others were about to give it their all. The 18th level of the Infernal Star. Jade Fuozi and the others stood up and wiped the blood from their mouths. All kinds of light surged on the surface of their bodies, mending the cracks on their bodies. Jade Fuozi had the body Buddhist heart, the Void Sword Sun had the void body, and the third prince had the sea god bloodline. It could be said that their bodies weren't weak under the support of their talents. Unfortunately, they had encountered a freak like Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's body had the potential to become an emperor. It wasn't something ordinary prodigies could compare to. Now that things have come to this, we can only go all out. The Void Sword Sun took out a jade seal. The third prince and Jade Fuozi also took out jade seals at the same time. Don't forget that they were still on the 18th level of the Infernal Star. They were suppressed by the domain and could only use 40% of their strength. Jun Xiaoyao, no matter what, you will die today. The Void Sword Sun's eyes were filled with determination. He had to kill Jun Xiaoyao and take the opportunity he had with him. With a cracking sound, the Void Swordsman crushed the jade seal. In an instant, his aura erupted like a volcano, causing the surrounding space to shatter inch by inch. His strength had recovered to its peak. At the same time, Jade Fuozi and the third prince crushed their jade seals. Their auras skyrocketed as the shackles on their bodies were removed. Their strength was completely revealed. Although it's only 15 minutes, it's enough to end the battle. Jun Xiaoyao, come on. Jade Fuozi's Buddha heart calmed down when he sensed that his strength had returned to its original level. The strength of the three of them had recovered to the peak, and they had regained their confidence. However, what surprised them was, Jun Xiaoyao didn't move at all. Jun Xiaoyao? Are you seeking your own death? Seeing that Jun Xiaoyao didn't crush the jade seal, the Void Sword Master raised his eyebrows. He said, why would I need to crush the jade seal to deal with you? Jun Xiaoyao shook his head and chuckled. What? You want to fight the three of us with only 40% of your strength? A cold light flashed in the third prince's eyes. Jun Xiaoyao was blatantly looking down on them. The strength of the three of them had recovered to its peak. But Jun Xiaoyao still wanted to fight them with only 40% of his strength. If this wasn't contempt, then what was? 40% of my strength is too much, Jun Xiaoyao said. A lion hunting a rabbit? You still need to use your full strength. It seems that Jun Xiaoyao doesn't know this, Jade Fuozi said. There's no need to say more. Only 15 minutes. Kill him. The Void Sword Master attacked first. His constitution was the void body, plus, he had comprehended half of the spacebook. Therefore, his attack speed was also the fastest. He took a step forward as if he had crossed the void. The long sword in his hand stabbed toward Jun Xiaoyao. This time, he used his full strength, unlike before. 60% of his strength was suppressed. Jun Xiaoyao also took a step forward and used the speed of the Kuan Peng. Then, he flicked his finger and it landed on the blade. He pushed the immortal body of the Deluo Immortal to the extreme. His finger was even harder than divine gold. With a clang, the blade of the Void Sword Master was shattered. Jun Xiaoyao turned his finger into a fist and punched the Void Sword Master. The Void Sword Master hurriedly blocked with his sword, but the vast divine power still caused the Void Sword Master to be shocked. His body flew back like a cannonball. What? The third prince and Jade Fuozi were stunned. They didn't dare to underestimate him anymore and attacked right away. In the dojo outside Hellstar, everyone who saw this scene was speechless. Jade Fuozi and the other two had crushed the jade seal and recovered their full strength in 15 minutes. Just when everyone thought that Jun Xiaoyao would crush the jade seal as well and take on the three giants in a complete state, he did so. They were shocked to find that Jun Xiaoyaro still hadn't used the Jade Seal. In other words, Jun Xiaoyaro was only using 40% of his strength to fight the three powerhouses. This was absolutely incomparably shocking, making one's heart tremble. What shocked them even more was that the Void Sword Master was still sent flying by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. While everyone outside the arena was still in shock, Jun Xiaoyaro continued to overwhelm Yi Futian with overwhelming force. 4 strands of deity qi surrounded him. Even if he could only use 40% of his strength, it was still shocking enough. Together with the 100,000 divine elephant granules and the immortal body of the Deluo Immortal. Even if Jun Xiaoyaro could only use 40% of his strength, it was still easy to deal with Jade Fozi and the others. He punched with deity light and 4 strands of deity qi at the third prince of the sea god. The third prince of the sea god also resisted the attack with 2 strands of deity qi, but he was completely suppressed by Jun Xiaoyao's 4 strands of deity qi. Even his deity qi was on the verge of collapsing. With a furious roar, the Ocean King's trident, which was imbued with the mystical powers of the god of the sea, was thrown at Jun Xiaoyaro again. Do you really think I can't break it? Jun Xiaoyaro held his hand up and brought out the cauldron of myriad qi. Wisps of myriad qi rained down, bringing with them a heavy will. Read by Mimi, is that, when Jun Xiaoyaro took out the myriad qi cauldron, the eyes of the little girl in the form of the immortal Marrow Emperor glittered like never before. It was as if she had seen the thing she wanted the most. Meanwhile, the myriad qi cauldron was flying at the third prince of the sea god. The third prince of the sea god defended himself with the Ocean Emperor trident. However, to his astonishment, cracks began to spread on his Ocean Emperor trident as the myriad qi cauldron suppressed it. Impossible, the third prince of the sea god roared madly. It was a supreme weapon. How could it be destroyed so easily? Suppress. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the mystical qi conjured from the myriad origin qi once again, raining it down. With a loud bang, the Sea King's trident was crushed to pieces. The fragments that flew out pierced the third prince of the sea god, turning his body into a sieve. Then, the myriad qi cauldron suppressed him completely. Wisps of deity qi poured down like the sky and the earth. Puff. The third prince of the sea god was crushed into a meat patty by the myriad qi cauldron. Chapter 559. One of the 3 overlords, the third prince of the sea god, had died under the myriad qi cauldron. Moreover, his death was extremely miserable. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. Only a pile of minced meat that made one's body go cold was left behind. You're next. Jun Xiaoyaro stepped forward. Mysterious spatial runes bloomed under his feet. It was the manifestation of the Kuan Peng's extreme speed. Jun Xiaoyaro held the myriad qi cauldron in his hand and attacked the Void Swordsman again. Billion Space Annihilation Technique. The Void Swordsman had goosebumps all over his body. He hurriedly resisted and performed a powerful move. His void body was pushed to the extreme. He mobilized the surrounding spatial power and 2 strands of immortal qi. The sword seemed to be able to destroy billions of layers of space. The space was filled with sharp sword qi. However, Jun Xiaoyao's move was simple and direct. He pushed the myriad qi cauldron forward. All the sword qi along the way exploded when they collided with the myriad qi cauldron. Oh no, the Void Swordsman's heart trembled. He stepped forward and used spatial power to escape. However, Jun Xiaoyaro had also comprehended half of the space scroll. He had mastered spatial power and cultivated the Kuan Peng's grand superpower. He was faster than the Void Swordsman. Bang! Jun Xiaoyaro pushed the myriad qi cauldron as if he was pushing a giant star. It shattered the Void Swordsman and the space around him. The Void Swordsman's body was shattered. Even his primordial spirit was crushed. In the blink of an eye, the second overlord had died. Jade Fozi was stunned. He didn't even have time to react. In just a few breaths, the third prince of the sea god and the Void Swordsman had both died. Yu Fuozi's heart turned cold at that instant. Jun Xiaoyaro held the myriad qi cauldron in his hand and looked at Jade Fozi indifferently. You Buddhists talk about karma. Previously, when I killed the Western Paradise's Buddhist son, Fa Hai, and Buddhist daughter, Miao Wuxin, You thought that this divine son would definitely receive retribution. But now, Zhang Xiaoyao sneered. Zhang Xiaoyao, even if you don't receive retribution now, you will definitely receive retribution in the future. Although Yu Fuozi tried his best to remain calm, his voice still trembled slightly. Even if there is karma in this world, let's see if this karma dares to fall on the Son of God. Zhang Xiaoyao's voice faded. He raised his hand. Within his Dantian's spirit sea, the origin of the universe in his God's origin surged out. Zhang Xiaoyao stretched out his hand. The power of the origin of the universe transformed into dazzling divine chains of order, intertwining into a wisp of eternal light. Was it Zhang Xiaoyao's self-created divine ability? Genesis. Light of God. Zhang Xiaoyao rarely used such a self-created ability, after all. This was because not many people were worthy of him using this move. Not even Jade Fozi was qualified. However, Zhang Xiaoyao wanted to end the battle quickly, so he used this trump card. That wisp of light seemed to have come from the beginning of the universe. The first wisp of light that was born illuminated the endless darkness. Everything in the world seemed to be returning to the origin under this wisp of light. It disappeared into nothingness. Feeling this extremely terrifying power, Jade Fozi was shocked. He put his hands together and chanted sutras. He had also unleashed his strongest move. Thousand-armed Buddha, body's sigh. The phantom of a thousand-armed Buddha appeared behind Jade Fozi. 1,000 palms struck out at the same time, turning into a jade-colored Buddha seal that seemed to be able to suppress the 3,000 worlds. The ultimate moves collided, turning the surrounding ground into dust. If it weren't for the second anti-immortal seal, the entire 18th level of the infernal star might have collapsed. Under this tremor, the dusty soil in the deepest part of the 18th level of the infernal star fell down. A door that seemed to lead to the netherworld was revealed. Of course, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't know yet. The dazzling light deprived everyone of their vision. Even the people in the outer dojos couldn't see the specific situation. Everyone was curious about who had won and who had lost. Kong Xian's heart was in her mouth. Under everyone's gaze, the light slowly dissipated. A huge pit appeared where it had been. Zhang Xiaoyao stood where he was calmly, his white robe spotless. Jade Fozi, who was opposite him, had disappeared. Strictly speaking, Jade Fozi's entire body had been annihilated in the divine light, leaving not even a speck of dust. This was the terrifying power of Zhang Xiaoyao's own Tao, combined with the power of the universe's origin, and evolved divine powers. I wonder when I'll be able to comprehend the second move. Zhang Xiaoyao shook his head slightly. He wasn't surprised by this result. This move was enough to kill the little tycoons. If it didn't work, he would add another move. So far, the 3 little tycoons had all died in Zhang Xiaoyao's hands. Most importantly, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't crush the jade seal. In other words, he fought the 3 little tycoons at their peak with only 40% of his strength and killed them all. If this battle result were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge uproar in the Emperor Road. Now, the dojos outside the Infernal Star were in an uproar. Oh my God, the Son of God of the Jun family killed the 3 little tycoons with only 40% of his strength. Am I dreaming? Download the Mimi Reading app to read forever for free. If 40% of his strength is already so terrifying, who can stop the Son of God of the Jun family if he goes all out? Even Yi Guchen, the first on the Barren Sky Saint leaderboard, can't beat him, right? Exclamation. Shock. Awe. All kinds of expressions and emotions appeared in the eyes of the Sky Prides. Even Chongming Supreme couldn't help but sigh deeply and say to himself, the rumors of the immortal battle are true. The Son of God of the Jun family is indeed worthy of the title of Invincible Saint. Invincible Saint was not a title that just anyone could bear. Only those who were truly invincible in the saint stage were qualified to bear this title. Otherwise, it would be a joke if they were defeated so easily. Chongming Supreme had heard that Zhang Xiaoyao had killed 100 saints with a single cauldron, but he still didn't believe it. After all, it was too shocking. However, Zhang Xiaoyao had proven it with facts. That rumor wasn't false. Haha, that long-haired bald donkey is finally dead. What do you think, Bitch! Do you know how powerful my master is now? The nine-headed lion danced with joy. Kong Xian was petrified as if her soul had been taken away. The Arhat, whom she admired the most, was no match for Jun Xiaoyao. The disparity was too great, and she couldn't accept it in a short period of time, no matter how noisy the outside world was. On the 18th level of the Infernal Star, Jun Xiaoyao looked calm. Killing the three little tycoons was nothing special to him. It was just a matter of convenience. His main target was the 19th level of the Infernal Star. However, before that, Jun Xiaoyao still had some errands to take care of. He first walked to the Void Sword Master and took away his spatial artifact. Jun Xiaoyao's lips curled into a smile as he probed with his divine consciousness. As expected, he obtained the remaining half of the spacebook. At this point, Jun Xiaoyao was the owner of 2 heavenly tomes. The remaining 7 owners of the heavenly tomes must live well. Wait for the Son of God to harvest you. Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself.